quiet.
I know, right?
Ray, give us the high sign.
We got like 30 seconds still. Well, they killed the
All
internet.
right, I am told it is 6 o'clock and we are live, so I would like to call us to order. In accordance with South Carolina Code of Laws 1985, Section 30-4-80-E, the following have been notified of the time, place, and agenda of this meeting: the Herald, Charlotte Observer, CN2, and WRHI. If I could ask you all, please, to join me in a moment of silence. Thank you. We'll now stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. I
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. You have all been provided a copy of the agenda. Were there any adjustments or corrections?
No, ma'am.
If not, that will stand approved with unanimous consent. And we're going to start off with some exciting recognition.
Yes, we will. We got our wires crossed a couple of meetings ago, and you may see some of the same names that they're here tonight. I think we got it right tonight. We'll get Colonel McKay up to help me do the honors.
Listen, all that clinging going on, all those,
Love
all
it.
those medals.
It's the best thing ever.
Want me to say the remarks first, or you want to do?
You go ahead.
Okay. Well, first of all, I just want to say to the school board, thank you for recognizing our student athletes. A few comments I want to make about Samantha Zermano. She's our 4-time national champion. She won the American Legion National Championships, the U.S. Army Junior National Championships, the Marine Corps National Championships, and the All-Service Gerald T.C. National Championships. That was just last month. Yeah, pretty impressive. Hey, Samantha's not only a great shooter, she has a GPA of 4.7. She's one of our co-captains of the rifle team. She's also captain of the computer defense team at Gerald TC. She's heading to Clemson in August.
Good girl.
Woohoo.
Absolutely. I want to say that our rifle team just earned its 57th National Rifle Team Championship title. Okay, that was last month. In addition to that, they have set 24 national shooting records. Samantha was the 28th, 29th, 30th, and 31st individual national championship title. So we've had a number of others prior to her that have won them. I just want to mention real briefly our other 2 graduating seniors, Caroline Audette. She is also the other captain of our team, and Caroline's also heading to Clemson in August. And our third senior is Keys Vandergriff. He's in the back. Go ahead, raise your hand. Yeah, or Keys. Yep. Keys is headed to the Citadel. He received a shooting scholarship from the Citadel. Keys happens to be our 9th student athlete that will compete in college varsity NCAA rifle shooting. Nice. Our 9th one. Yeah. They're not just really good shooters. I averaged all their GPAs. The 12 on the team came out to 4.10 GPA. So that's pretty impressive for student athletes. This Friday and Saturday, we're going to Anniston. We're shooting the CMP Southeastern United States Regional Rifle Championships. Today, Sergeant Major Logan, he's my counterpart in Ishford High School. He took the drill team to Fredericksburg, Virginia, to compete in the National Drill Championships. Dr. Frateroli's youngest son, Dominic, is on that drill team, and I think that's where Dr. Frateroli is. He's heading to Fredericksburg right now. So I just want to say one final comment. After teaching Gerald TC for the last 15 years and wearing this uniform for 45 years, this will be the last time that I appear before the school board. I am retiring in June, and I'll tell you, words can't express adequately the joy that these student athletes and all the cadets at Nation Ford High School have shared with me over these last 15 years. I'm really going to miss them. I want to thank Dr. Epps, Principal Chandler, I know there he is in the back, and the school board for your continued support for these last 15 years. Really appreciate it. Thank you very much.
Before Colonel steps down, we want to thank you for your service and your efforts. It's been amazing to watch year in and year out you parade these kids across here, and they're all wonderful kids, but they couldn't do it without your leadership and your guidance, and we certainly appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Colonel. I mean, Madam Chair,
Yes.
person, before we get started with the meeting. Yeah, oh, okay, here we go. I just wanted to mention to the public some great news we got yesterday, or maybe during the weekend. Am I on? Now I'm on. Okay. All right. This is an award that we get each year. We're usually ranked pretty highly. It's not something we try to get, but it feels honored to get something from an outside source. But the Niche 2023 Best Public Schools in South Carolina, Fort Mill School District was ranked #1 overall in South Carolina. We ranked number 235 out of 10,751 districts nationally. That's in the top 2.1%. A lot of people ask how we compare nationally. There's one measure right there. On the elementary side, well, let's just talk a little bit about the award. I did a little research today. On the elementary schools that they honor based on student-teacher ratios, academics, and math and reading scores, diversity, and that's the elementary and the middle schools. And then the high schools, they use those measures plus the clubs, sports, the food of all things, the college prep facilities and resources, administration, and the food again. So and they do a lot of surveys and opinions from parents and students, and so they have all this huge database, and I can't tell you how they figure it, but each year we're proud when we see the rankings. The middle school, let's talk about the elementaries. We had Gold Hill Elementary was the #1 public school elementary school in South Carolina. We had 7 of our 11 elementaries in the top 10. We only had 9 eligible elementaries because 2 of them are only 2 years old. So that's amazing. The middle schools, Pleasant Knoll Middle School was ranked #1. All 5 were eligible schools in the top 10. Forest Creek was not eligible because they don't have enough data. So we had 5 of our 6 middle schools in the top 10. High schools, we had Nation Ford 8, Fort Mill 11, Catawba Ridge not yet eligible because of hadn't been a school long enough. And that list includes the 8 and 11 includes the governor's school. So I think it's just an amazing bit of, this is what is driving, these kind of measures are what drives people here. Parents go online and they do their research. This is not going to be a good thing for our growth. It's going to make it even more of a challenge going forward for the school board, for our situation with the budget. But we're a victim of our own success often, and I think this is one of those times. So I just want to thank our staff for their efforts. They're amazing people. If you attended the Hall of Fame ceremony tonight, you saw a little bit about the history of what has made this place great. I don't think as we grow and as we get so many new people, I think it behooves us to remember where we came from and what made this place what it is, a good, solid, basic academic institution. And that's why, if we can remember the past, I think we can take that into the future with us. So that was the point of the ceremony. But I don't know what to say other than the staff. The parents are amazing. We've always had a great relationship with our parents, good quality relationships. That doesn't mean every parent's happy or every parent's not. But the surveys and the opinion surveys have been a great majority of our parents are pleased with the schools, and obviously they are because they're moving here at record numbers. And a strong school board that develops policies and lets the administration run it and lets us implement the policies. Strong administrators. I just think it's the whole ball of the whole ball is what makes it great. And I want to thank all the people who are responsible. Let's give everybody a big round of applause.
I would just say congratulations to you and all the people in the room that have been a part of making this possible. Thank you guys so much. It's very exciting. And also very exciting is we have a school spotlight, which has become our new favorite thing to do at these board meetings by Riverview Elementary School. That's our next item on the agenda. I don't know how you guys are going to work through it, but I'll let Ms. Romanek take over and take it from here.
Yep, you can click.
Well, good evening. I'm Darlene Romanek, and I'm the principal at Riverview Elementary School.
Hi, good evening. I'm Lisa Lucas, assistant principal at Riverview.
And I'm Scott Sinclair, assistant principal.
We are excited to introduce to you our 4th grade huddle team. But before we get started, I wanted to share with you the why behind the team huddle. As a new admin team, first year together, we wanted to immerse ourselves in the total school culture at Riverview. And we wanted to do that not only as leaders, but as learners. So the first thing we did was we got with our leadership team and we looked at our data. And our data told us that we need to start really focusing on writing. So we quickly jumped in and we have a school-wide initiative for writing this school year.
Thank you. And to begin this process, we knew everyone needed a common goal, shared strategies for reaching the goal. And during our PLC time, our teachers reviewed the writing data, shared their notices and wonders, and based on their feedback, our Read to Succeed goal was created. This goal was also incorporated into our teachers' SLO goals. And this year, our Read to Succeed goal for writing is: teachers will work together in teams to collect and analyze data, establish goals and look-fors for students, and create action plans for student writing. Our next steps were to align the SLO and Read to Succeed goals, provide times for our teachers to write the strategies, and share the possible sources of evidence for reaching the learning targets. This also enabled us to redefine our PLC model. Our admin team meets with each teacher to review the SLO process at the beginning, in the middle, and at the end of the year. This was a seamless approach to assist and support our teachers and what they might need instructionally, and also helped us to know what to observe when we went into classrooms. Based on our mid-year conferences held in December with all of our teachers, reviewing the student work samples, we noticed that our individual teacher strengths could enhance the instruction for all of our students.
Last, our admin team sat down with our literacy coach and shared our teachers' concerns and brainstormed ideas to meet the needs of not only all of our students, but all of our teacher teams as well. So I'm going to hand it over to Ms. DeMayo, our literacy coach, and she's going to share with you our team huddle.
Hi, good evening. Oh, sorry. My name is Victoria Bujak. I am a 4th grade teacher at Riverview Elementary. I'm going to introduce the fabulous team that I get to work with every day. We have Mandy DeMayo, our literacy coach, Lainey Collins, 4th grade, Mackenzie Johnson, 4th grade, Amanda Bima, 4th grade Teacher of the Year, Ryan Perez, 4th grade, Ashley Mantel, our interventionist, Natalia Segura, who is our numeracy coach as well as interventionist, and the wonderful James, our student spotlight, that's going to share with us today. So I just want to say on behalf of all of us, we are thrilled to share this with you. This is something we've become very passionate about and something we've seen great success with. So I actually took over the writing plans back in January. And one thing, as Ms. Romanek said, we noticed a lot in SLO, PLC meetings was just we continuously saw that writing was an area of improvement for the students, but also we noticed as teachers we wanted to build our capacity in that, and we had growth to do. So I knew to make the most effective writing plans, I couldn't do it on my own. So I leaned into the expertise of everyone here and even some that aren't here today. And we really built a foundation of trust. It was a space of vulnerability, but also it was an our student mindset that was cultivated through this huddle process. And we really are putting our children first every day through this model. And we really do believe that teamwork makes the dream work.
Hi, thank you all for having us. We're so excited to share this with you. This was an idea that I just kind of based off our data and based off the writing needs of our students. I thought, what is a way that we can collaborate and work together to impact our student achievement? So I always say to them, they know, I always say to achieve a great dream, you need a great team. And this is my team of educators that have supported us throughout this process. And I'm so excited for y'all to learn more about it. Oh, how the huddle works. So first, we focus on the planning. Then you'll see my whiteboard where the students we're setting individual goals for teachers. And I really feel like this process has helped with teacher retention and the enthusiasm, the self-efficacy, they've transformed almost when it comes to writing. Then we go in and do the teaching component. That's when I go in and coach in. We even have headsets that we can talk to one another throughout, but we're all looking for the same look for. So I think as the administration team talked about before, they can look for the same things that I'm looking for or the personal goal that the teacher has set. And the most important part of the team huddles are the reflection time. It's on-demand reflection where teachers are coming out into the hallway after each lesson and we're saying, what could we do better for the children during our next writing lesson? What are we seeing that works? What are we seeing that doesn't work? And it's on-demand teaching. And it's just been, they go with some of my crazy ideas sometimes. And this has been a crazy idea that we ran with. So.
Hey, I'm Ryan Perez. I'm a fourth grade teacher at Riverview. The biggest piece for me that I'd like to highlight for we call our team huddles is collaboration. Before, what collaboration kind of looked like for writing was, hey, here's this next writing unit we're doing. Here's our pre-write sheet. Get the students to fill it out. Move on to the next day. The next day we take out our pre-write and we start our introduction. And it kind of spiraled from there, and that was what every writing unit looked like, and it was kind of like, hey, we're going through the motions. We checked off the persuasive writing, we checked off the narrative, and we did this and that. And that was as far as the collaboration kind of took us from there. In January, I think, was when we started implementing these team huddles, and at first, again, I will say, like, Manny was like, it's crazy. Do it. We'll jump into it. And, I'm a pretty open-minded person, but even I was kind of like, all right, team huddles, I'm like, it's 5 minutes here. 5 more minutes here, then like I'm losing instruction time. But I feel like the 45-minute block of writing, using the 5 minutes to start our huddle, giving the verbal commitments, like what am I really focusing on today? Am I focused on the pre-writing sheet or am I focused on the kids? Because before I think we got stuck on not necessarily the kids, but the writing process is like, hey, just checking these things off. And then what collaboration started to look like as we got more comfortable with this model was that 5 minutes was like we were in sometimes 3 minutes, 4 minutes. And the collaboration kind of spiraled away from the teachers and kind of took the kids into it as well. And we started highlighting, once or twice a week, we would bring our own kids out here and be like, hey, would you share this piece of writing? And one of the most powerful things I had happen this year was I brought one of my kids out, and Victoria left her just a sticky note. And we have these time capsule boxes we're working on in school right now. And Victoria just left her a note. It was like, hey, you rocked it today, blah, blah, blah. I just left her this awesome note. It was just a small sticky note just telling you, thank you for sharing today. It was really powerful. And she put that sticky note in her time capsule box in a bag, and she wrote, I'm the best. Aww. And it was really awesome to see as a teacher, just coming back to that collaborative piece that I think we sometimes teach down to versus teach with. And I think I've learned a lot just from my kids. And I'll let James share a little bit later wherever he is. There he is. I'll let him share later before we watch our video about it. But he's one of the ones we've had just exponential growth, and he works with Miss Mantell as well. And just, again, that collaborative process of if he's in my room, Miss Bujak's room, Miss Collins' room, he's getting quality education just from our experts on our team. So the collaborative piece to me has been the highlighted piece. But,
And tell them how many years you've been teaching.
this is my third year. But,
Okay, so I like to bring the fun in my classroom. So when Mandy said, what's the next writing unit, I told her text-dependent analysis. I don't know about you all, but it is the worst unit. I hate to admit this, but I dread teaching it. Like, it's so boring. Like, they have to read this passage. It's super long, and the question is like, sometimes they don't even know what the question is asking, right? And then they have to write, you know, right? So as a parent, you're frustrated too, because the kids will come home crying, like literally crying. We have tears. I was like, okay, Mandy, we got to do something about this, right? And so we brainstormed together, and we came up with this secret spy challenge, because kids love to be spies, right? So we have a mastermind who is actually Romanik. The student, oh no, don't tell anyone. Classified information.
Still a Santa Claus though.
So we came up with this whole premise that there's a mastermind who's stolen the spy tools, and we have to solve these. They have a mission to figure out who it is. So every Friday it's like an escape room. So they have to go in. There's writing components into it. So they're actually doing an escape room with writing into it. And then they open a lockbox, which you can see over there. And in the lockbox, there's something every week. So one time they got a magnifying glass. Next time they got a badge. Next time they got a mirror, because they're going to read this Friday, like using the mirror to decode some words. And it just brings so much fun to them. I also got other people involved. So like Mr. Sinclair, he'll sneak into my room and try to steal the top secret folder. And the kids love it, because they're like, I said, he's not cleared. You don't give him the top secret folder. Also, our teachers have similar letters in Miss Romanik's name. So I gave them a top secret folder. And so they'll like have it in related arts and like accidentally drop it, and the kids get all excited. So we've been doing all this just to create excitement. And one thing I want to say is that I'm excited now. Like, I want to come to work on Fridays, and I can't wait for the kids to see the escape room. I can't wait to share it and work with my team. And I also want to highlight Mr. Whitlock, who's a GT teacher at our school. He's helped me create the skate rooms too. So again, it's all a collaborative effort to bring the fun. I think it's fun. James, do you think it's fun? Do you like it? Yeah. So, and then I'm excited about the last part of what we're going to do, but can't say anything. I know, because James is in the room, so I can't say. So. And then next slide. And then the second piece is about reflection. So I know that Victoria's already talked about it, but the biggest thing is when we huddle for 5 minutes in the very beginning, she tells us what the lessons are. And then if we have any like misconceptions or we're not sure about something, she clarifies it. So we all go into the room knowing what we're going to do for the day. And don't get me wrong, like sometimes we do different things. Like we're not confined to do the same thing that everybody else is doing. We think of our class, we think about what they need. Like Miss Johnson, her class is really strong in writing this year. And so she's kind of added a few things where my class might be a little bit different. So you just kind of go with the flow. And then when you come back for reflection, I love that it's that same day in that moment right after. So you remember what we need to work on. We remember, like, I'll even admit, like, I don't know what to do about this. Can you help me? Victoria talked about the vulnerability of like taking our team and asking, hey, I need help with this. How can I make this better? It just really encourages us. So again, that reflection piece is so important. Now, not only do we reflect as teachers and grow every single day, the students grow every single day because they reflect too. So they reflect on their own writing. They help their peers reflect on their writing. They also look at student samples that have been posted to the South Carolina State website. And they grade the student samples too. So they see the expectation, like 4 is the highest number you can get on a writing prompt. So they see what a 4 looks like. And they know what the expectation is. So we do have a video to watch. about a little girl in Ms. Bujak's class who is rating a student sample. So go ahead and play the video.
That academic language that they're beginning to use is so important, and we're really seeing it every day in everything they're doing.
I am not as fun as Miss Bima, but I won't spoil anything. So, so something that I've taken away from this is kind of the quantity and quality, not only of student work, but also like me as a teacher. I was vulnerable with the team earlier and said that, you know, last year, I'm a second-year teacher this year. So last year in my first year, like if this is something that I had, I probably wouldn't have cried so much about teaching writing. And I was planning writing and I dreaded it. I did not like it. I did not know what to do with it. So I'm very thankful for Victoria and for Mandy for helping get us through this and over that little hump of frustration. But so the huddles really just help us as teachers, like everyone has said, reflect every single day. We come to that reflection and we have wins and we have losses and we all see it in our faces. When we walk out in the hallway, we're like, oh, that was really bad, or like, but this is great. Like, you know, and I have a kid with me here, share, you know. And so we just found a better way to kind of to tackle writing. Like kids, you know, it's something that, you know, they may not want to do. And we all understand that there are parts of our job we don't want to do, but part of your job as a student is writing, and we can at least try to make it fun. And just the biggest thing that I've noticed, especially from some of my students, and I have a work sample that you can't read, but you can see how much is written there, and that was the first unit that we tackled with the huddles and with this kind of approach that we used, where that student in the beginning of the year could barely like write 2 sentences to support an idea, a topic, or anything. And he wrote this amazing, amazing essay about how school should have more unique sports. And he did all of the research on his own about how, you know, it helps hand-eye coordination and it helps kids get more involved and like get fresh air, vitamin D, you know, and how that's really good for students. Like he came up with it entirely on his own. He presented it to me and I was in shock because I have struggled so hard to get these students to write anything, let alone pull these kind of ideas out and just run with it. So getting to have that quality, that quantity from the kids and having that from us as teachers and being able to go to each other, get different ideas from each other, has just been a really beneficial part of the huddle. So, yeah.
Hi, I'm Miss Johnson. So my thing's about confidence and pride, mainly because I was not a confident writing teacher whatsoever. Like it's the part of the day that I most dreaded. Very vocal about it with my team. But I've actually like grown to get very excited for writing. Like I'll be driving to school and thinking about ways that I can like change the lesson to kind of make it fit the needs of my students and get them excited about it. And even at the beginning of the year, a lot of my students were very reluctant writers. They weren't very confident in themselves. Had a lot of students cry at the beginning of the year when I told them they had to write a paragraph. Which was concerning, but we got through it. But they've just gotten a lot more confident, and the big part about it is just like we've been celebrating the students more. So even just tiny celebrations throughout the day. My students love to brag on their writing. So like if they come up with a new transition word, they'll have to show it to everybody. The project that we did up there was like a class project that we did all together. But I split them up into teams, and they each did a body paragraph and used race or strategy for it. And they were so competitive. I didn't even make it a competition. And they were all like, I'm going to make the best transition word. I'm going to use the most evidence. I'm going to explain it the best. Like, they just kept going on and on and on about it. And we really have done a lot to spotlight the students to get them to have that pride in their own writing. So very, very exciting.
Victoria Bujak. But one thing I really want to focus on is we talked about collaboration a lot, but most importantly is the collective efficacy and just how much empowerment that I've seen among everyone here. I've seen teachers before my eyes blossom and grow like Miss Johnson. She's like, oh, I actually like writing now. And same with students. Like we would see the tears, the fear. But one thing I just loved is engaging in this process. It just allowed every teacher's voice and knowledge to be heard. You know, I work amongst very knowledgeable, smart educators. We all have our strengths, and this huddle process really allowed us to hone in on everyone's strengths and build upon them every single day. Like, while I plan writing, we'll come back and share after a lesson, and then Ryan will share something like, oh, I didn't even think about that. So the next day, I go and implement that in my room. So we're constantly feeding off each other and just, you know, day by day enhancing our instruction. But it's for the common goal of the student. We want them to achieve. We want them to feel confident. We want them to grow. And again, it's just been so rewarding watching this empowerment grow and just seeing it in these teachers. It's began to trickle down to students. Like, you have students so excited to run out, share with us, and, you know, we had a video crew in, you know, and they weren't shy. They were proud to show it off, even though there's like a ton of people in the room at a time. But just this continue building empowerment every single day, we're just seeing such great improvement, but also it's leading into goal setting. Students are now setting their own writing goals without much prompting for us. They're taking that ownership in it and that empowerment. And same with us teachers. Like Mackenzie said, she's setting a goal for herself, driving to work without even realizing it, as well as when we meet every day, we're setting those goals. And, you know, through that goal setting, we're seeing that empowerment and that growth.
I'm an interventionist at Riverview, so my role is a little bit different. So I work with students with reading, writing, and math in small groups usually. But the good thing about a good coach is she's always looking to recruit more people. So I'm kind of like the transfer that came in a little bit later to the game. But she saw an opportunity for me to come in and kind of co-teach with these awesome teachers. And it was not really, it was more beneficial for me, I think, for the kids. It was amazing. Because lots of times I'm on my own, I'm in my room, I'm doing my business. You gotta get all this stuff done, and I really don't have a lot of time to work with other teachers either. So this gave me time to work with the other teachers. It gave me time to talk to the other teachers about how the kids were doing. It was just amazing. And then I still could not do the huddle because of my group. And she was like, she kept inviting me. You really gotta come see this huddle. I'm like, okay. She was so persistent. So I changed my schedule around, y'all, you have to come see it. Like, just to hear about it is one thing, but to be a part of this huddle, they are all building themselves up every day. And I have a little quote in here. They bring the kids out, and one of my friends, I didn't know he was coming when I put this quote up here. And one thing he said, when I shared my rating in the hallway, I felt better about myself when I went back to my room. It helped me know that I have improved and I can do it. So these teachers are building these kids up, and I'm not going to say how many years I've been teaching because I don't even know, but I've never seen kids get built up like I have this year. And this kid has done amazing. So go team.
I'm Natalia Segura, and I'm going to be presenting What's Next. Mandy recruited me to come and observe and watch the huddles. So like Ashley said, I rearranged my schedule to make sure I'm there as well to see how this fits in math. One of the things that I've learned just watching the huddles was the collaboration in real time. The teachers were able to communicate and talk about the lessons and then take what they learned and bring it back into the classroom. And like they said, that feedback and that reflection piece was very powerful. So our next steps is taking the huddle and using it in math, whereas though teachers can come out in the hallway, teach each other the different strategies, and then go back in their rooms and implement it as well.
Hi, my name is James Martin. In the beginning of the year, Mr. Perez said, hey, he said, let's write. I almost had a heart attack. That's a joke. That's a joke, Mom and Dad. Don't think it. I could start I couldn't start my writing. But in the middle, Mr. Perez said you can make it nonfiction or fiction. And when I started it, it was like a violin making harmony. And now Mr. Perez is making fun games for me and all my classmates. It helps me sometimes, but he gives me Stitch when I am frustrated. And sometimes I let other classmates have him too. Have a great day. Have a great day tomorrow.
Okay, so you've heard all about this from all these amazing educators. Now I want you to see it in action. So we're going to show you this video. Over the last 13 years, I have been a literacy coach, and I have tried a lot of innovative ways to help support students and teachers. And I will say that this dream of mine that I had became a reality because of them, but we're doing this for the children. And the academic achievement that we are seeing our students grow in all areas of the curriculum, it's just been amazing. And this is how we retain teachers. This collaborative approach to teaching is how we retain teachers in our district. Anyone else have anything? Mrs. Ronick's going to finish this out. I'm very passionate about this, but I would love to email me. I would love for any of you to come over and see it.
All right, Dr. Epps, you say the secret sauce is our teachers, but I'm going to have to say it's our teachers teaming together to get this done, because we can't do it by ourselves. And if we want to keep our teachers, Liza works so hard, this is how we can do it, and I'm very passionate about it. We give the teachers the time to reflect. They may be losing a little bit of instructional time, but what you're seeing, and I think what you just observed, is worth every minute of it. So thank you. If you have any questions, we're here to answer them.
I have one.
Yes.
So, as I've mentioned to you several times, Dr. Epps, this is wonderful. So when I hear about the PLCs and what I've seen thus far, collaboration, corroboration, passion, believability, those things. So I'm glad you mentioned again about the teacher retention. So when I hear the word teacher retention, there's a way of how we quantify that. Is there a couple bullet points you can give on when you say teacher retention? Because I want people to really understand what you mean by that. Please?
Yeah, you can
So within the first 5 years, we are now losing teachers by 50%. So if you look at Mr. Perez and Ms. Collins, or any of you other first 5? Okay, so 5. So it's a significant decrease. I just think, what do you all think? I mean, talk to me about teacher retention and why you aren't leaving the profession. I think it needs to be told from you.
I'll say being fresh out of college in a bachelor's program, that was one of the big things that was focused on, was the idea of make it past your 3rd, make it past your 5th year. If you can do it, you're in it. It was a scary thing to hear, just in the sense of going through school. I had fun in my internships. I had fun in my practicum classes. I had fun learning about curriculum. So all these things I thought were fun. So I was saying, okay, well, what's being hidden to when I get there that I'm not seeing? And I think some of it, and I think Lainey kind of touched on this before, is getting to the pieces that you're unsure of were scary. And I think, and again, I'm going to go back to the collaboration, just being a part of a team that kind of doesn't let you fall behind, or giving you those fresh ideas, or making you a part of this group that's constantly going forward rather than just being stagnant or letting the passion die out. Because every single morning that we meet for these huddles, we give a verbal commitment. So like Victoria will say, all right, well, Perez, what are you focused on today? Like, what is your goal for today's lesson? Not for the end of the unit, but what are you going to get done today? And I got to make that commitment, and I'll say my goal today is to get my kids to elaborate using 2 of their 5 senses. And then when I go in my room, if I don't get anything done but that, then it's been a successful day. But they hold me accountable as well. So I will get back out and they say, okay, well, what 2 senses did you focus on today? And I say, well, you know, it was rough today. We got 1 done. But, you know, so today was a failure. But then Mackenzie will say, well, you know, we tried this today and my kids really hung on to it. And that may be something, even when we go back for our reading time, I may sneak in one of my rotation groups. Let's do a little bit more writing. And we'll get that done. But in terms of the retention, just that piece of, and you say, well, we're a family, but really that piece of being together in the journey from beginning of the year when we meet the kids to when we send them off, it really has given me the tools to give the kids the tools to be successful. So
when you walked out the door today from work, what was your greatest satisfaction?
That I get to come and talk about work.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Sorry. I know we all want to talk. I'm just going to be like, just being upfront and honest. Like, this is year 5, year 4 in the district. And I was definitely feeling the burnout pretty bad at the beginning of the year. Near tears every day, feeling very unmotivated, feeling very stressed. And when Miss Bima started adding the fun in, I was almost at a breaking point. Like she was describing this breakout room, and I was like, oh my gosh, I cannot handle one more thing on my plate. But truthfully, it's been the best part of the day is writing. And this has really brought back the love of teaching for me, personally. Just being able to talk to other teachers, reflect on our practices, and just build each other up, the celebrations, everything, definitely has re-energized me, so it helps.
Okay, I think that's all for this evening. But honestly, if we continue to do this for all of our schools and all of our teachers, I think we're going to see a great success with retaining teachers and retaining the students the students in our schools.
I actually want to talk about just for a second the student academic side of things. And Dr. Epps and I have talked many times that we hear from students who've gone on to college and they're extremely successful in their first year, and compared to people that they've met that went to school somewhere else, and they feel extremely prepared. That obviously came most recently from the high school. The high schools do a lot of writing. A lot of these AP classes involve a ton of writing, and I have a college freshman, so it's all very recent to me. It was really probably when she was in middle school that I remember writing being most introduced, where it was a new skill for her. And so the fact that you guys are getting this started in elementary, I think is fantastic, because again, I do think kids graduate from our Fort Mill schools with a huge leg up on people from the rest of the country that went to other schools and didn't have a lot of the same quality of education and of teachers that we have here. So I think this is fantastic, and I appreciate what you guys are doing.
Thank you all so much.
Thank you.
All right, like I said, always our favorite part of the agenda.
And that's our State Teacher of the Year, helping head that up.
That's right.
We'll know a little more later in the month where we finish.
Not as exciting. We have approval of minutes
Right.
from March
Come
7th
on now.
and the 21st. You guys have received a copy. Were there any adjustments or corrections? All right, then those will stand with unanimous consent. Do we have any public participation? Okay. Then we've got a handful of staff reports. We'll go first to Ms. Lordo for a financial update.
I can't see the mouse in there.
Hello. Good evening. Well, I hate to follow that. I don't like to be the first staff report. In your packets this evening, we have the monthly financial for February 28th, 8th month of the fiscal year. Total revenues are $147,335,000, and total expenditures $117,016,000. So we are in the highest positive cash flow month of our fiscal year at $30.3 million. Real estate taxes going forward are now in delinquent status. So we have received the bulk of real estate taxes for tax season, and we will see those more than likely start declining as we finish the fiscal year. But as we have now come to expect, vehicle tax collections in February once again exceeded $1 million at $1,227,000. So the cars are still on the roads here. And we did receive fee and lieu taxes of $739,702. Looking at the most current tax collection amounts, I've projected that out to June based on where we are currently year to date and using collections for March, April, May, and June of last year, those equivalent months. And at this point, I'm estimating we should end the year with about $1.9 million over budget in taxes. And that's really a combination of countywide millage, operational millage, and fee and lieu collections. 1.9 is it's a big number, but yet it's only a 2% variance. So we will have hit the budgeted property tax revenue line item 98% accuracy if we do end the year at that level, which is very close, very close. It's a tough one to estimate right now with the growth in property taxes for us.
Florida,
Yes.
I noticed that looking at those particular summary numbers, that the least increase out of all the different categories was our state revenue.
Imagine that, yes. Thank goodness that we are still in a growth situation with property taxes, because as we look across the state, a lot of districts are not. And I think that would even be a greater struggle than what we're experiencing with state revenue. So excellent point. Thank you. Any other questions about the monthly financial before we move to impact fees?
Yes.
Okay.
So, as we've been a few months into the school year, how would you describe the outcome of the funding mechanism provided by the state?
I would describe the new education funding model as very uncertain. And what I mean by that is, I think I shared with you at the last meeting when the 45-day collections came out, just to recap on that for everyone's benefit, 45 school districts lost money. We were pretty much at a break-even point, but we even saw districts that had increase in students lose money. So we are now, I'm currently waiting on the 135-day allocations, which will be the next reports that I receive, hopefully in the next week, 2 weeks at the most. It'll be based on the Senate finance version of the budget, but it will be updated for the 135-day counts, average daily membership counts for all school districts across the state. So I have to say that that is my biggest concern, is the uncertainty, and I've heard all of my colleagues across the state voice that same concern going into the budget planning for next year with their administration and school boards, is the uncertainty and now the variance that we can see that we have no control over.
Yeah, I mean, I would think whether you were a growing or a shrinking district, or one that was not really changing materially, just the inability to plan for things that, you know, we have no idea if we're going to grow more or less than someone else, right? We only know what's happening
Correct.
here. And if they grow more in Charleston than we grew here, then we lose money. And that's very hard to plan on something that is an annual contract.
Correct.
Well,
Correct.
And to the annual contract point, we've asked our teachers to sign a contract for the new year, and yet we can't guarantee them what they're going to be paid because it's all this right now. So.
Correct. Just a lot of uncertainty is my greatest concern.
Thank you for the response.
But that is why it made me think about something. That is why it's very important, and why a lot of times we get questions about our fund balance. Districts across the state get questioned about their fund balance, specifically from legislators. But that's why having a fund balance to maintain that financial stability is so important for these various reasons. Because right now we're in positive cash flow, but as we go through the remaining months of our fiscal year, we will be using some of that current cash flow that we've already received to meet our monthly expenses.
And if the property tax guesstimate that you put together was off 2% in the other direction.
Correct.
Right? Then that's what that savings account is for.
Absolutely, yes. So I like to put that in when we can. It's a very important point. Impact fees, total collected to date, we are just shy of $57 million now. $56,921,080. We've collected on 2,100 single-family units and 1,564 multifamily for a total of 3,664 units. March, we had 16 homes and 23 multifamily / apartments, townhomes. Our comparable data for 12 months rolling, we're still about 40% less on multifamily and single family, as we have come to expect coming out of COVID. It will still take us a while to shift that. Our March actual collections were $566,000, compared to our average monthly for calendar year 2022 was $861,000. So we were slightly less, but we're seeing the pickup. We're seeing the pickup.
I've noticed a shift that we seem to be having more multifamily than single family on a regular basis.
I would agree, absolutely, based on the monthly or the daily reports that I receive.
Well, and based on where I'm seeing ground
Yeah,
ripped
yeah.
apart.
That I think we can expect to, the next probably 6 months at least, see that continue with permitting.
Ms. Lauder, so just
Yes.
for acute clarity here, so I want to make sure I'm not misinterpreting your words. Is it safe to say that you're extremely concerned where we are today?
Extremely concerned? Well, I'm not extremely concerned,
Not
but,
about, but what's happening, so you use
well,
the
I
word
am,
uncertainty.
and I'll kind of share a little bit. I'll go ahead and roll into where we are with the budget statewide and kind of share what's happened maybe since we met last time. So last week, Senate Finance met. In record time, a day and a half, they passed their version of the budget.
It was 2 readings.
2 readings in a day and a half. It was very, very, very little change from the House Ways and Means to the full House to the Senate Finance. The teacher salary scale per the Senate Finance still has the $2,500 per cell increase, which we expected. We did not expect that to change. The teacher supply stipend is still slated to go from $300 to $350, We do not expect we will see that change once it goes to the full Senate. So the budget's passed. The budget bill has passed out of Senate Finance. It is on the desk of the legislators this week. It will be debated in the full Senate starting next week, I believe on Tuesday, the 18th. At this point, we are hearing there's not going to be a lot of change. But what concerns me about that is we have worked very hard. I actually went to Columbia with some other districts. We met with Senator Sean Bennett from Dorchester 2, who headed up Senate Finance for many years. He's no longer chair, but he's very influential in Senate Finance. I watched the day and a half, some of the day and a half last week. There was no mention of any school districts being concerned about the new education funding model. And we had laid out a lot of concerns to him. There was no mention, no discussion. It was as if everything with the new funding formula is fine. It's working, peachy, we're going to move on. I was very disappointed in that. I also personally have spent a lot of time with him and some of our other delegation members talking about hold harmless. Fort Mill, we are the most affected by the problem with hold harmless. And the problem with hold harmless is that when the new education funding model was adopted this time last year, there were 5 or 6 districts that were held harmless, meaning we were not to receive less funding than the year before. We started out with $7 million, I'm rounding, $7 million of hold harmless funding. The final number was $5 million. When the 45-day allocations came out this year, we were now down to 2.6 million. So what's happening is, even though we've grown and we're due more revenue for additional growth in students, they are decreasing our hold harmless, where the intent, I believe, was that the hold harmless would be frozen. But the way that it was worded, that is not the interpretation. And we have explained that to various legislators, and there is no interest so far in changing that. We'll continue to work that as it goes through the full Senate and then it goes back to the House. That is the most concerning piece to me, is how Fort Mill has been affected by that.
Do you anticipate when the 135-day comes out? First of all, I'm assuming that you anticipate that our hold harmless number will shrink yet again.
I am anticipating that, yes.
But do you also, do you anticipate that there will be other schools? So before it was just 5 of us that were in this boat, and we were the biggest fish in that boat.
Correct.
I'm wondering now, with this shifting of model, like what happened at the 45-day, are there going to be other districts that suddenly decide hold harmless is important, that didn't care so much?
Possibly, because we've already seen a large growing district drop out of hold harmless completely. Lexington 1 has lost all hold harmless funding.
I would assume that there will be districts that will be set to receive less money than this year, next year, because
Correct.
they have not grown, right? And
Correct.
so that will put them in a new potential hold harmless, right? Not those same 5, but a new set from what you had shared with me a while back.
And the
about
most
how many
difficult problem, I think, for districts when they look at that, or really when legislators look at that, is that there is additional state revenue put into the big pot. So their comments are that there's more money, everyone's receiving more money. Yes, everyone is receiving more money for the new pot, but we are also trying to plan a budget for next year with the $2,500 per sale increase plus the related fringe on that teacher salary schedule. And I can share with you that in my preliminary calculations and what I've seen other districts come out and say is that on average, the funding is only covering about 88 to 90% of the increase with the fringe on top of it.
So with these concerns, and the other school districts that you're in contact with, are you feel like you all are consistent with the framework delivery?
I think we're consistent. I think we're just not being heard, or we're being heard, but there's no desire to make any changes.
Can we have some talking points from you pertinent to our district?
Yes.
By Tuesday of next week?
Absolutely.
Given that we'll
Yes.
be in Columbia on Wednesday doing my most favorite thing ever.
Absolutely. I'm going to take the framework that we already developed for Senator Bennett, and then I will just refine it for us with our data.
Because my feeling still is, as long as this is a Fort Mill problem,
Nobody cares.
it is not a Columbia problem.
That's right.
Correct.
And until it becomes a problem with other districts in other parts of the state,
Right.
It's not going to receive that type of attention.
Right. And that's why my group has tried to, I'm working with the Lexington area, I'm working with Greenville. We are trying to pull in various districts in different scenarios. I think that right now the legislators just feel like they want to give this another year. They want to see how it works out, is what we're being told.
Because they can't already recognize that while the funds were supposed to at minimum stay the same, they've declined.
But again, remember, for most districts,
Right.
it did work out. And that's what I say,
Right.
it's a Fort Mill problem today, because most districts received a lot more money than they had in the
I
past.
think
And so
Greenville
they were,
was a huge loser this year.
and so,
Yeah.
so most were
Most are
pleased.
okay.
Leanne, what they
So-
keep telling you, another year and let it settle out or
Let it level out. Let it level out.
and just God hope it
Mm-hmm.
settles positive for us.
But our enrollment doesn't settle out and
Doesn't
drop.
work.
It
Again,
keeps
a
growing.
Correct.
problem's not a Columbia problem.
Right.
So.
I don't think
two-
there it is.
Go ahead.
When they were making this, did they reach out to any school district in any form of the educational field to determine what our budget should be?
They did not.
Not one.
And that was one of our, I guess, comments last year over and over, is that the South Carolina Revenue and Fiscal Affairs Office, Frank Rainwater's group, they ran all the data and presented all the data at all the subcommittee hearings last year, and then the committee hearings, House Ways and Means and then Senate Finance.
But before it was passed, you and Dr. Epps and I
We
made a
did.
trip to Columbia for you to share, hey, you didn't
Right.
ask, but can we please?
Right.
And it wasn't just, I've forgotten the other districts, but there were 2 or 3 other districts that went.
That went.
And actually testified and said, you
Yes.
didn't ask, but if you had, we'd like to share.
Yes.
Some of the actual implications.
Do we know if anyone actually had a firm understanding of school finance in that committee?
No.
Okay.
And we even had Gary Summerall come, who was on the additional committee when they couldn't agree, and it went to a House Senate committee to work out. We brought him in and laid it all out for him and his staff, which was how we got the hold harmless
Yeah.
that isn't so hold harmless. So, no.
Less, just not.
So for our community, could you pretty much just at bottom here, Fort Mill schools will be receiving less moving forward as is.
We will not receive less, but we will not receive the amount that we should be receiving that equates to the growth that we are experiencing.
Right, so we'll still get more.
Right.
But it
The
will
bottom
not be
line,
equivalent.
right, right.
Okay, so rookie question.
Okay.
But, so basically, if we want to just maintain like at the exact level that we currently provide, as far as student-teacher ratio and pencils in the classroom and all, we just want to not fix one single thing, but just keep everything steady Eddie. Because of the deficit in money compared to the number of kids.
Correct.
Our only choice is to ask the taxpayers to pay more.
Correct. Correct. Yes.
Local taxes.
Local
Like
taxes.
Fort Mill taxpayers pay more, or Fort Mill students receive less quality than
Correct.
previous years.
Correct.
Okay.
Because we're getting
Yes.
88% of what
Right.
I mean,
Right. Right.
there's a lot, and I'm new.
Right.
So,
No,
but
that's
I'm
a
just
great
making sure
bottom line.
is, if I want
We'll
things
have
to
to make
even
up the
just stay the
difference.
same, I have
Yes.
to ask people to pay more.
Correct.
We'll have to make up the difference.
So on that note,
So fun.
I will share with you that in regards to the Act 388 funding formula, yesterday, I received the letter from, well, Dr. Etz received the letter. I had already gone online first thing and looked at the report because I knew it was coming out. He ran down the hall from the South Carolina Revenue and Fiscal Affairs Office for the population growth. Because remember, there's two components to your authority for millage increases. There is the CPI, Consumer Price Index percent, and there's the population growth percent. We had already in February received the CPI percent, which applies to all school districts, is 8%, the highest it's ever been. It shows what's happening with the cost of living. 8% on the CPI growth. The school district estimates came out. This is based on the March 2023 county population estimates by the U.S. Census Bureau. Our growth percentage is 5.26. 5.26 plus 8% is 13.27%. So 13.27% times we're currently at 231.5 operating mills is 30 mills.
So that's
So-
what the state cap is in
Correct.
terms of our ability.
Correct.
Again, whether we choose, but
Correct.
that's the ability legally to raise local millage to make up those gaps
Correct.
or anything we would want to add.
Yes.
Which is paid for by businesses, not by
Right.
those of us that own homes.
Not by homeowners.
Our
Correct.
cars.
So it's all
Cars.
Or boats.
Cars and
Yes.
business owners.
But
Yes.
not not our homes.
So just,
Investment properties as well.
Yes,
Yes.
correct.
yes. We said cars, boats,
Cars,
rentals, everything other than the primary homes.
Yes.
So
It's
just
a huge one.
keep that in the back of your mind. Because at the next meeting, the administration, we will present our local budget recommendation to you.
We're doing that next meeting?
We are doing that next meeting.
Alrighty.
Yes, we're going to get the ball rolling. Okay?
Do we still feel good about the timeline from Columbia in terms of when we will know that, I mean, it sounds like we're pretty sure where the dust is going to settle, but
Mm-hmm.
at least when we know that for more certain than what we do today.
Yes, because and we'll present as long as, we need to have the 135-day allocation numbers to see what's happening statewide.
I don't know if it was last year or the year before that everything sort of drug out, and so we did things later.
Right.
Okay.
I don't at this point anticipate we're going to see any additional changes in the teacher salary scale in the full Senate. So that means that will not be a big conference committee item back and forth between House and Senate conference committee. I think they are pretty much locked in on that at this point.
Leanne, have you guesstimated the impact to the absolutely wonderful news of maternity and paternity leave? But I'm just curious if you have estimated the impact of.
Well, the
that
state
wonderful news.
actually, they ran some estimate, School Boards Association queried some data, ran some estimates statewide, and they're showing us that, I think the number was, it was 400 and something thousand. I think it was 447,000 would be the impact to us.
Which is a couple mills, so it's not great. But
Correct.
Again, I'm thrilled for
Yes.
our teachers. I'm
Right.
disappointed that it doesn't come with funding, but.
Right.
Par for the course.
Yeah.
Okay.
I want to
Yeah.
mention what you're talking about. The paid leave is
It would be 6 weeks of maternity or paternity leave
off of their sick leave.
on top where that would not count towards their other accrued sick
'Cause
leave.
currently, they do have to use that.
Correct.
Yes.
Correct. But we believe that's still going back to going to the Senate now. So we'll see what happens with the final bill in the end on that. The last thing and this is great news that I did want to share. There is a proviso related to SURDEP, which is 4-year-old funding. We were one of 17 districts that did not receive funding. The language, so the state last year decided, the House and Senate put in more money. The State Department still said, nope, you still have to meet these poverty thresholds. We did not receive funding. We worked on that again with Representative Felder. The proviso, there was actually language added in the proviso that they discussed in Senate Finance last week that said all school districts will be eligible. That was mentioned. They said it was in relation to York 4, so I turned up the speaker. I was like, oh my goodness, they're talking about us.
Because we're the only one that didn't have a school at
And
poverty level.
And so the State Department representative stood up and said, they call us York 4. York 4 is the only school district in the state that does not have at least one school with 60% poverty. We're the only school district affected by this. And Senator Setzler said, well, State Department, did you recommend this change? And the State Department said, well, we didn't really recommend it, but we supported it. And so that made Senator Setzler a little worried, and he said, well, is there some other reason why you would not want them to get funding? I was watching this, and the State Department said, well, no, we'll support it. And so he, because of that, said, I think we should carry over the proviso and not pass it today. So I immediately contacted Dr. Epps. He contacted Representative Felder. She went down the hall and talked to Senator Setzler. He understood, and he pulled his objection, and they passed it. So I'm sharing, sometimes our efforts do pay off, and they paid off on this one. So we've received a letter that we are now eligible and that we can accept funding. And we have started our plan, but kind of early planning is that we would add 2 additional 4-year-old classrooms next year. So we are very excited about that for our at-risk 4-year-old children.
And where will we
Yes.
house them? Do we know that yet?
I do not know where we're going to house them.
And
but-
those 2 classrooms
Yeah.
would be funded,
Correct.
again, to the degree, whatever degree everything else is
Yes.
funded. But would be added in. And is the 2 classrooms a limit because of our
The funding.
capacity and ability, or?
More the funding, because we no longer, we will not receive EIA 4-year-old funding, which we currently do receive some of that. We give that up to receive this funding, but this is going to be a larger amount. By, we think about $125,000 because it's $5,100 per student. So we think we're going to give that up to receive this. So we think that's kind of where we're getting probably 2 classrooms.
It's not a win-win.
Well, I was gonna- and
yeah.
So, because we've been talking about hoping to begin offering just 4-year-old kindergarten,
Yep.
period, full stop,
Yes.
right? And so, is this at least a step
It's a
towards
step.
that?
It's a step towards that, absolutely. Yes. And we just felt like we were due part of this state funding, like every other district.
I think we still need to sing our
Yeah.
song down there, though.
Yeah.
Being the only district.
Yep.
Right.
Right. So, any other questions?
Thank Representative Felder for
Yes.
his efforts, I believe.
Yes. She jumped on it, and we were very appreciative, and she was back and forth with us and let us know as soon as she had talked with him. So, yes. Any other questions?
for Ms. Lori?
Okay, thank you.
All right, thank you. Our next topic is some discussion on branding from Mr. Burke.
Oh, I already had it up on the computer for us. And then I hit it again. I know, right?
Good evening. I promise the only numbers in this presentation will be color codes, so it should not be that hard to keep going. Just before we get into the final imaging that I want to share with you guys tonight, we'll go back a little history, and actually almost a year ago, pretty close to date, we started this project as part of our strategic planning. We originally were working with Rhodes Branding to do some initial branding research, and they came in and did an immersion workshop in this room here with a large number of staff people, a few external individuals, district staff, board members, all of that stuff came through, and we really did a lot of work on just what we had a view of the district, who we thought we were serving, who was working here, who we were targeting as teachers or other employees. We then went into some design development. They had several different designs that they came back with. We fed those through some small groups, and then through some larger groups, and then through our cabinet, and ultimately we had a board presentation that we did here. Everybody kind of felt the design at the time was not exactly where we wanted to be finalized. So what we decided to do at that point is kind of take a step back, bring it back internally in-house, and go through the process one more time. A lot more design research went into it from our side, just to look at some of the stuff that's out there for other school districts and other entities that are similar to school districts. We looked at some college level stuff. We looked at whether we're dealing with sports versus a corporate logo, those kinds of things, to really come up with our next step, which was design development. And if any of you guys were in the small groups, you may have known there was probably 15-ish, 18-ish different types of logo designs that we created to bring into our small groups. They ranged from everything from using stuff that we already had in place, some imagery that we already use currently, some new designs and those kinds of things. I don't mind saying that I was the artist for all of those designs. So I took a lot of positive feedback during all of that, the small groups, but that did help us narrow it down to roughly about 4 or 5 images that we looked at. We did some more refining. We did some combining from some of the other designs. So after several of the small groups, we then went into the communication strategic planning group, which is the group that I host as part of my area under our strategic plan, which is another small group. There was about 8 to 10 people on that group, and we looked at the logos that we had there. We again did some more refining. Hey, have you tried this? Could we combine these two together? From that, I left that group with 3 logos that were pretty close to what everybody has started leaning towards and everybody was liking. So we wanted some more feedback, so we went out to our principals at that point. We showed them everything they had, and of course they hated all of it, and we started over. No, I'm just kidding.
Everybody's got it.
No, so we went through that process. They gave us, again, that more feedback. Let's combine some things together. Finally was the full strategic planning group that we went to, and when we came to that group, we had really 2.5 versions of the logos. They were very similar to each other. They just kind of featured different colors and some different stacking at that point. And overall, the strategic planning group had some overall feedback and overwhelming response to one of those particular logos. And then, of course, we talked to you guys at your board retreat about some of this and got a little more feedback on some final tweaks, which brought us to where we're at tonight, which would be the logo recommendation the administration is going to put forward to you. You're going to see several images because we're not just dealing with one logo. So there is the primary logo of the district. Any of you guys who've done this for our schools in the past know there's a primary logo, and there are even versions of the primary. There are secondary marks, and then a lot of times you have an official seal, which we're going to see all of that tonight. But with no further ado, here is the primary logo. What we have here is the main feature of the district, and we think this really overall came out from everybody, is our graduate. It's a feature in our current logo for the most part. The problem is it's shrunk down inside of an eye. So it's very hard to pick out. It's very hard to become part of the district and see it. Whereas with the reverse image going inside of the larger letter like the D, even when it shrinks down to some of the embroidery that goes on their shirts or hats, it still stands out, still looks good. And we'll see some of that in just a minute. But there's 2 stacked here. Primary logo would be the main one at the top without the school name, which is just the FMSD. We did a lot of research into that because there was a lot of questions about FMS, FMSD, do we spell out Fort Mill? What we found is that the majority of the people, when they refer to the district in shorthand, it's FMSD. Nobody says FMS. FMSD is the most common shorthand used for the district. So we decided to go with that. And then, of course, the second stack of the primary logo is you have the full district name, Fort Mill School District, underneath it. Somebody saw this sitting in the back of the room earlier and picked up on it. The colors are a little bit brighter here on this screen than they actually are. That is actually a true navy blue. That is true red and true green. And then there is the lighter blue there. But somebody happened to notice that while they're not exactly the colors, they are the colors of our high schools, or close enough facsimile to it. Now, so I would say if and when we add the 4th, might I recommend we use the 4th color. That way we can say that we did that all along knowing. But no, these colors were chosen because they are primary colors. And I will say this, This is the only time you will see all 4 together. There are no designs that would call generally for the 4 here. We did this because visually, and you'll see in a minute when we put up the other school logos, this really stood out very, very well. And regardless of what you put it on, it really popped. But the main primary colors would be the navy blue and the lighter blue. Those would be the ones we would use. Like when you go to the website, you're going to see those 2 colors would be the primary colors in use. We would not have a website that looks like a Christmas tree, I promise. That's not something we're planning to do. The greens and the reds would more get used independently. So if we were going to work on if for some reason we wanted to do red shirts with the white graphic logo, which you'll see single color here in a minute, we could do that. If we want to do green shirts with a white graphic logo, we could do that. They'd be used as accent colors in other locations, other places. If you look at sports teams, the majority of them have 3 to 4 colors. They have 2 primaries, and they have usually 1 or 2 accents that just are in fillers. They all have Pantone colors, so they will match up with painting. So Mr. Romanek will be able to order paint for wherever we need to get rid of the beige and red colors that we have in here and everywhere else, if and when we get ready to do that. We try to make it as easy as possible moving forward to be able to match that kind of stuff up. All right, along with the primary, this is what I was talking about here. You'll notice we'll have an approved version of the logo both in black and in white, depending on what the use for it is. This is something you really have to do every time you create a logo. You have to be able to have a single color version of it, especially for screen printing, if you're going to keep costs down. One thing the district has never done is officially accepted the graduate as an actual mark of the district. So what we're doing here is we're setting up the graduate as a standalone, as a secondary mark. So we could use that moving forward. And that, honestly, again, from our group talks, that is immediately recognizable as a Fort Mill symbol. Exactly. The other thing we did do a little bit of tweaking to, we didn't change much, but the Fort Mill seal right here is actually slightly different than the one you might have seen before. The only changes that were made is all of the shading has been removed. For some reason there, when this was originally created, all of those, the leaves in there, the stars, the wording, the rims, all had this kind of metallic shading to it, which is very problematic when you go to print, especially, again, if you're printing in single color. Things start to get a little blurry and get a little messy. And it'll be easier. You can't do, if you wanted to do decals or something with this on there, you can't do those gradations in it unless you print it. This way you could actually die cut it and stick it on something if you wanted to. All right, so as I mentioned, we're looking at the other school districts around, at least close by to us. The only one that's not on there is CMS. Just tried to pull all of our local people first. Obviously, Clover has the blue and green theme. Union County has the green. Rock Hill has their, I think it's a teal and navy blue. Legion, again, blue and green. York is one of the ones that has a gray and orange scheme. It's just a different type of logo. But when we stacked them up by everybody who had color logos or those types of things, again, this one just stands out quickly between all of them. And this is what I was talking about here with the, this is just some examples of the types of materials that we could get this stuff printed on or embroidered on. The hat at the top left would be embroidery. The bag at the bottom right would be embroidery. The rest would be print. And again, this would be if you're going on white, you would use the color. But if we were going on solid color, let's say you wanted to get navy coffee mugs, you would use the white logo to go in there. If you wanted to get, a white bag, you could use the black logo if you just wanted to go single color for cost-wise. And with that, that is the full sheet right there. Our plan is to bring this back to you at the next meeting for final approval. Once final approval happens, we will then take this and convert this into a style guide. And we will start creating all the deliverables needed to basically announce this, roll it out, put it in the mix and get it put through all of the products and stuff. And you'll start to see things change over time. Obviously, shirts and things like that, I've got people that are at my door every 5 minutes wanting to know when we're going to do this so they can order their shirts.
The bag that's at the bottom corner, please.
The one on the right there? Okay.
Yeah, that one right down here.
All right.
That's a great looking bag.
And then over time you'll see other things. Decals on trucks and things like that will start to cycle out as they're removed. fortunately, because we don't really have a logo per se at the moment, we just have the lettering. It's actually not, the transition is not going to have to be as abrupt as if you were changing from one visual image to another. So you can kind of roll things in a little bit as we go. But I'm happy to answer any questions about how we got here or what you guys think or any suggestions if needed.
Are we trademarking? You hear a lot about that in business in terms of, you know, trademarking, and I know at times we've had concerns with some of our school logos and whatnot. Where are we with?
We can certainly look into that. Because it's mainly focused on the lettering, really the trademarking portion of that would be the graduate. That would be especially as that secondary mark. And so we could certainly go back and look at that and see the secondary mark and the use of the secondary mark inside of the D and the main logo would where your trademark portion of it would come into. And of course, using it, if you were to use the same letters in the same color scheme, tried to represent yourself as Fort Mill, that would be a trademark infringement as well too. So yeah, we could certainly go into that once we have a finalized version.
I like it. I'm very pleased. I think you've done a great job with it. And I know I was one of those more difficult people. So thank you. I appreciate it. Hey, I said it. I own that. I got no problem with it. There's nobody in this room that doesn't know that that's the case. So,
Questions, comments? No. Thank you for your work.
love it.
Appreciate it very much.
Well, we'll see you next time.
All
Thank you.
right. And then we have one more staff report from Dr. Wakesness on curriculum.
And I'm going to lead off with a
Oh.
comment before, you can stand there, Dr. Wages. I know.
It's a short comment, apparently.
I wrote it down so I won't foul it up, right? Tonight you will hear an update from our curriculum department. In the interest of time, the presentation will focus on the 4 core areas: math, English or ELA, science, and social studies. The presentation will include information on the standards implementation process in each area. That's the state standards. New state standards implementation is typically a 3-year cycle. The State Department of Education will first release the newly approved standards. From that point until the end of that school year is considered the first year. During this time, districts take a deep dive into learning about the new standards, attend state-level training, and plan professional development for their teachers. This is also when districts start to decide if anything needs to change in order to meet the new standards. It is important to note that we teach the South Carolina state standards and not any one curriculum. The next year is often called a bridge year, and you're going to see a lot of that here in a minute when the curriculum folks present. During this second year, districts and schools continue to learn about the new standards and start to teach some of the new standards while still teaching the old standards. This is often when the state allows districts to start selecting new resources to teach the new standards. Finally, the third year is full implementation. This is when schools must teach the new standards. This is when state testing also starts on the new standards. In regards to ELA, we are currently in the first year of new ELA or English standards. They were just released in January. We have been intensely studying and learning about the new standards and how to best teach them. One of the changes we have found in our ongoing research is that the new standards, especially in K through 2, have a strong focus on the explicit and systematic approach to teaching phonics and phonemic awareness. This is where we find alignment with the science of reading approach, which is the primary direction we will continue from this point to pursue. As the state releases more details on curriculum adoption and training, we will continue to learn more about the new standards. They have not yet released details on training or curriculum adoption for ELA, and you'll talk a good bit about that as far as the teacher training and where we are at the state level. Yes. During the presentation, our curriculum team will go into more detail in each subject area. So that's the lead in to.
All right. Sounds good. All right, so I'm here to talk, like Dr. Epps said, about our curriculum update. And rather than try to talk about everything we've done as a curriculum department for the year, which would take a few hours at least, we decided to focus on the standards implementation process because for whatever reason, we're just in a crunch zone of new standards from the 4 core areas, which is very unusual for them to happen so close together, which has presented I don't want to say a lot of challenges for our teachers, but a lot of work for our teachers when you have new sets of standards for multiple areas, especially our elementary and some middle school teachers. So before we get started tonight, I would like to thank our curriculum team, who you see most of them here. We have a few that are not, that have been up here in front of you presenting. While we have a small team in relation to the amount of students and schools that we serve, I'm always amazed at the work they do. So I'll only be up here for a couple minutes, and then they're going to do most of the presentation. So I will probably mess this up because I always do. Oh, I actually got it. The profile of the South Carolina graduate. This is something we've all seen before. This is something we strive for all of our graduates to be. By the time they leave our school district, we want them to have all of these different characteristics and attributes as they move into the next phase of their life after high school, whether that is going to a four-year university, the military, the workforce, or a tech school, all the different options. We want all of them to be able to say they meet this profile. So two big things that we focused on this year, and it really applies to what we're going to talk about tonight, is how can we promote collaboration among our teachers, and how can we accelerate the learning of all students? So you've heard us talk a lot about professional learning communities. You heard Riverview talk about it earlier this evening and the great work they're doing. And as we have all these new standards, it's even more important for our teachers to collaborate. So they're doing the work teachers do, but they're doing it as teams, not on their own. So these are two of our guiding questions for our department this year. So Dr. Epps mentioned some of this, but every course that has South Carolina state standards, that's what we're required to teach. The standards. School districts don't get to choose what they want to teach when the courses have standards. That's what we are required, so that's what we teach. Dr. Epps also mentioned we don't teach any one curriculum. We teach the standards. Of course, we use curriculums, sometimes house-made, sometimes from vendors, to help us get to student mastery of these standards. But as you'll see throughout the presentation, the state typically follows a very standard procedure for when new standards are implemented. There's a cycle every so many years. In theory, sometimes that gets off track, especially with COVID. But the state will review the standards for the core for all areas, really, for all the different subject areas. And that usually takes, that's a multiple year process. They'll get a group of stakeholders together, teachers, experts, content areas, community members, college level folks. They'll get together and they'll look at the current standards that are up for review. And they will offer any changes that they think may need to happen. There's a lot of time for public input and stakeholder input to the State Department. And that typically takes at least a couple years to do that. Once the state adopts the standards, there's a 3-year period of implementation, a 3-year cycle, I guess. The first one Dr. Epps mentioned is the State Department approves it, and then the districts and the schools spend the rest of that year analyzing the standards, learning about what changes there are. Sometimes their changes are minute. It's really nothing. Sometimes there's a lot of wholesale changes. It just depends on that individual cycle. So right now with our new ELA standards, we're in this top box here. They were released in January, and we are in that first year. The second year is considered a bridge year. The State Department provides teacher training. Teachers begin to implement a mix of the new standards. Students are still tested on the old standards. If there's a state assessment, SC Ready or an EOC exam, they're still tested on the old standards. So that we are in science, we're in year 2 right now with the standards. You'll hear more about. And then the third year is when teachers begin full implementation of the standards, and that's when students are tested on the new standards. And since I have been in South Carolina, which has been quite some time now, over about 15 years, this has been the process for new standards adoption. Sometimes it gets a little bit when Yashika talks about math, it gets delayed a little bit and it expands, and it's a little bit of a longer process. But typically, this is the standard process. So social studies, we are actually out of that 3-year process finally, but you see here in 2019, 2020, the New standards were released during that school year. I think it was in January. Actually, we began teacher training. We continued teacher training the next year. We got teachers together to create pacing guides, and some teachers started implementing the new standards. And the 21-22 school year was the first year of full implementation. So that's one of the core areas, and these were actually pretty significant changes for social studies. So you'll kind of see how each subject area, we're going to talk about how we have new standards.
Does the timeline of the change of standards usually correspond with a change in textbooks and materials as well?
That's a great question, and we're gonna talk about that. It depends. Typically, the new textbooks or the curriculum to help teach those standards happens in the second year. Peter's going to talk a lot about that with the ELA. But sometimes it's after year 3. So like for social studies in 7th grade was geography, a brand new course, a major change. They didn't have textbooks until it was the 3rd year, the full implementation of the new standards. So it would be best if they were in the 2nd year, and they usually are in the 2nd year, but sometimes it falls down to the 3rd year. All right, so I'm going to ask Mr. Ropes to come up, and he's going to talk about science. Yes.
Hi there. I'm Greg Ropes. I'm the K-12 Science Coordinator. Dr. Wakes has talked about how we have sometimes small changes to standards and sometimes wholesale changes. The new science standards are a wholesale change to how we teach science, how students engage with science, and also just what is taught where. So content moved from 4th grade to 2nd grade, from 7th grade to 3rd grade, all over the place. So that 3-year period of time for us to work with the standards has been very helpful. So our new South Carolina College and Career Ready Science Standards were approved by the Board of Ed on May 11th of 2021. They really asked students to do those 6 things. And I'm not going to read those to you, but what I love about them, and I'm way more passionate about these standards than any rational person should be. I love them. They expect students to act and behave like scientists and engineers. From K all the way through 12, students are taught this is what scientists do. And I think that's just really exciting as an educator to see. It's a lot of action verbs. Students don't memorize, right? They don't regurgitate facts. They make sense of things. They make good decisions. They carefully consume material. They engage in things. It's action, and I just really love that. Our new standards are 3-dimensional, so you hear this 3D. It's really verbs. What are we doing? That's the science and engineering practices. The disciplinary core ideas are the content. What are we learning? And then the cross-cutting concepts are themes. How do we weave all of this together? This is what the new standards look like. They're wonderful. They're color-coded. I print them in color. I'm sorry, I use a lot of curriculum department money for that probably, because I think it's so important that our teachers are able to see how everything is tied together. So this is one of my favorite kindergarten standards. And if you were to look at that and read that as a standard, it's an intimidating thing for a kindergartner or for a 5-year-old to be able to do. But in training and working with our teachers, we're able to give them resources so that they can provide really relevant learning opportunities for our students. As you'll see, a 3-year implementation process. So again, May 2021, they were adopted and approved by the State Board of Ed. Last year was that year 1, initial review of us just kind of getting our feet wet with what do they look like. We're in year 2, as Dr. Wakeness said, and this has been our professional development bridge year. So we're working directly with teachers, and I'll go into a little bit more about what that training looks like. We're ready, getting ready for next year, full implementation, K through 12, getting ready for testing on EOC in the winter of 2023, and SC Pass in the spring of 24. So how are we getting ready to implement the science standards? What are we doing? We've kind of taken a 3-tiered approach to this with resource adoption, training, and curriculum. Again, we're adopting resources that are aligned to the standards. And it's not the only thing that our teachers are using, but it's a really important tool that we give them, that the teachers are provided with, so they can make sure our students get the best learning opportunities. So in terms of that resource adoption, we've already adopted K through 8 science resources. So Inspire Science was adopted last year. That's our K through 5. It's a wonderful resource, but it's just that. It's a resource, it's a curriculum directly aligned to our South Carolina standards. STEM Scopes is our middle school, so 6 through 8 curriculum. And then we'll be asking you at a future board meeting to consider Inspire Biology for our biology curriculum, which is we just have done the whole caravan process with high school teachers there. In terms of training, I've been lucky enough to work with our outstanding teachers, both science teachers and just all teachers, because in elementary school, of course, everyone gets to teach everything. And so we've been able to have McGraw-Hill and Accelerate Learning, those are the publishers of Inspire Science and STEM Scopes, come in and give our teachers direct training here at the district office. We've also had State Department of Education, their state science associates come in and provide training for our teachers. And then I've been lucky enough to work with our teachers as well to kind of just say, hey, this is what we have. What can I provide for you to make sure that you're prepared for full implementation next year? Curriculum, I mean, that's what we do, right? We are the curriculum department. And so one of the things that I've been really, really lucky to do is that I get to work with teachers in developing the curriculum. So yes, the state standards tell us what we have to teach, but we have some flexibility in terms of meeting the needs of our students. So we've been meeting with groups of teachers K through 12 to develop pacing guides to provide some consistency so that all of our students, regardless of what school they go to, are getting a consistent and viable curriculum. So we've worked with elementary teachers. This is actually an example of a pacing guide that first grade teachers have worked on. I've met twice with them already this year. We've been using all of the time that we have. So those early release days teachers work on these just kind of in their own little groups. Professional development days, we work with them. And it's just been a wonderful process. This is teachers building resources for teachers to use. And I think that's so important that this is a collaborative process. We've done the same thing in middle school and then in several of our high school science classes as well. Again, I'm so proud of the work that our teachers have put into this. This is an example of teacher-driven long-range pacing guides. It's not expected that teachers do exactly as it is written, but it's a suggested pacing, just to give teachers some resources so that they feel comfortable teaching something that they may not feel terribly comfortable teaching. Science can be scary. I mean, I think it's awesome, but a lot of other teachers think it's scary. So that's all I have for science. I'm going to pass it over to Amanda Griffin and Peter Ollinger to talk about ELA.
Good evening. Good to be back speaking with you tonight. Here, we got Amanda Griffin, and she's our elementary ELA coordinator. We're going to be kind of back and forth sharing with you tonight. So we are, just like Dr. Wakes has said, we are just starting this process for ELA. We got our standards in January, and Amanda's going to be sharing a couple of snippets of that with you, but just to share, it's 91 pages front and back. So it's quite thick, so we've had a lot of time trying to comb through these and prepare for the future. So we got these in January. We're doing that, digging in right now. Next year will be our bridge year, and then in 24-25, we will be in full implementation. So we're going to kind of go through that process with you tonight about what that's going to look like for the coming months. So as with all subject areas, you've heard Dr. Wakes and Dr. Epp say, we teach state standards, not a certain curriculum. And I do want to highlight real quickly with what Riverview presented tonight. You're not going to find what they did in a box anywhere or any kind of program. And it is absolutely amazing. So if you ever want an opportunity, please reach out to them or me. We'll be happy to go over there and share that with you. But they have taken that to teaching the standards to the next level. And we hope to be able to continue to try to create those types of opportunities for our students as we delve into these new standards. So as we learn more, we'll continue to adjust and develop our approach to teaching standards. We actually will touch on it again. We actually Dr. Wakesness, Amanda, and I had a meeting with the Early Learning and Literacy Department at the State Department and kind of talked to them about the standards and our approach. And they wanted to get some timeline because we want to know kind of what trainings are available, when support documents are coming out. So all that's still in the works, and what curriculum options will be available as well. So we won't have that until 23, 24 sometime. So they kind of said just be patient, make small shifts, and start working that way, and we'll work with them in that. So, but we'll touch on that a little bit more as we go through. And I'm gonna let Amanda talk the next couple slides.
Hi, how are you? So I'm here to talk a little bit about kind of a little deeper dive into our standards for ELA. I wanted to kind of show you this picture. It's got the 4 strands. These are actually all new strands. These strands are for grades K through 12, and with our new standards, kind of like science, it's very, very different from our old standards. So a lot of the language is very different, and then the structure of how the standards are written are very different. So we have a lot of work to do to get our teachers ready for these changes. One of the biggest shifts, which I highlighted, is the foundations of literacy. Those are those early literacy skills, phonics, phonemic awareness, which I'll get into in a little bit more. So these standards, these foundation of literacy standards, they really do kind of lean themselves towards more of a structured literacy approach, which is kind of the how to science of reading. Is it up? No, the other way. Okay. So I just wanted to break this component down a little bit because this is where we're going to see the biggest shift in our standards. If you notice, the strand Foundations of Literacy has 4 components there. Phonological and phonemic awareness, which is really recognizing and manipulating sounds of words, that oral language. Print concepts, decoding and encoding, that's kind of like your phonics component, and then fluency. Again, like I said before, the way the standards are written, they do lean themselves towards that structured literacy approach, which really is just very explicit and systematic instruction. So when looking at these new standards, one of the things that I feel very proud of our teachers for doing this year is in print concepts. One of the things that we really wanted to try to do as a district is to start tracking data across the whole district, not just within schools. So we created a systematic common assessment that we've been tracking since the beginning of the year with these kiddos. So in kindergarten, where we're at right now is they just took their last assessment in March. 93% of our kindergartners are at the end of year benchmark for print concepts. And we're so excited because of the work of creating this assessment and really helping these teachers explicitly teach those concepts. So we're looking forward to taking some of the learning from that and doing some of that work with phonological and phonemic awareness and the phonics section. So when we're looking at the new standards, we've actually been doing a lot of work to prepare for these new standards. I work really closely with the literacy coaches at every school in the district. We meet consistently throughout the year, and we have had a really big focus in studying the science of reading because we know that there are some shifts that we're going to be prepared to make within that area. Part of the work that we've been doing is we've done a book study called Shifting the Balance. And not only have we done this as literacy coaches, but a lot of our teachers in our district are reading this book. And what we love about it is it helps us make small shifts, not huge shifts, because we're already doing a lot of awesome things in our district. I mean, if you look at our scores, what we heard at the very beginning, we're a strong district, but we can still grow and get better. So we're really excited about learning about some of the small shifts that we can start making. We do, as literacy coaches, we do these things called coaching labs. It's a job-embedded professional development for teachers. They get to come in with their literacy coaches and do this professional development. They get to go into classrooms and see action. And one of our labs was about how to use decodable text effectively. And decodable texts are used primarily in a structured literacy classroom. And so we feel that that is an area we're trying to look into more and learn more about how to use that balanced with as well as level text. Another thing that we've been doing with the literacy coaches is starting to unpack these standards because they are very different. So we're trying to calibrate our language and make sure we're on the same page. So when we're getting ready to, do some PD in our schools, we're sending the same message across the district. Our coaches work really, really hard, and they are doing numerous webinars. They are going to lots of conferences. They are listening to podcasts and reading research. So they're doing a lot of this work already and have been doing it consistently throughout the year. We even have some schools who are trying to pilot some of these different, explicit and systematic curriculums just to get us ready for some of these shifts. Oops, wrong way.
So as far as we'll be doing at the district office as well, so when these standards came out in January, at a lot of our state meetings, a lot of our positions have state meetings through SCASA and the State Department. So myself, this has been a big topic for us beginning this semester at the elementary directors' state meetings, state roundtables. Dr. Wakesness, who's actually the president, as y'all know, of the Instructional Leaders Roundtable for the state, this has also been a big topic over the last month of March, where they've been highlighting what these standards are going to be and the state's goal and I think direction they want to go with early learning and literacy. So again, we after that meeting, after a couple of our state meetings, we had that opportunity to meet with the early learning and literacy office there, and they've been a great help. We anticipate again, hopefully curriculum this hopefully fall, it might be winter. The sooner we can get it, the sooner we can make some decisions, which the sooner we can get that in the hands of our teachers to start making necessary changes. Also, Amanda's part of a state literacy directors, coordinators group where she's getting constant updates and be able to get information and research from there as well. So we've met often over this past semester. We've met with literacy coaches. We've also been updating our principals. And we do have consistent meetings where a couple of times a semester we do have literacy coach and principal meetings. So we're going to actually be having a couple additional of those as we work together to kind of dive a little deeper to kind of plan out and game plan what our PD and training is going to be like moving forward. So that's the big thing coming up as well.
All right, so thinking about some of our shifts to align with these new standards. Like I said, we're gonna really kind of focus on those foundational skills, hone in more on the phonemic awareness and phonics. We do have a lot of that systematic work going on, but we want to make sure we're being consistent across the district. We're going to increase the use of decodable text as well as the balance with level text. After doing that coaching lab, we actually have seen an increase of teachers using and trying some decodable text in their classrooms. So we're really excited to see the progress and feedback from teachers on that. We are going to continue to track and analyze data with us trying to make some shifts in the instruction of phonemic awareness and phonics. So I'll work really closely with the literacy coaches to create and organize how that data is going to look and how we're going to capture where our students are throughout the year. And then we're also going to look at the schedules for a K-2 classroom. We shared with principals a couple weeks ago about some samples of what a structured literacy classroom would look like, so we can start incorporating a little bit more of this phonemic awareness within the classrooms. So the principals are aware of that, and so that they can start kind of thinking about what that might look like in their master schedule. And I know we're talking a lot about K-2, that's where the biggest change is, but when it comes to 3-5, they're still going to be tested on the old standards, original standards. So the work we're going to be doing with them next year really is just starting to unpack the standards. It's not going to be as much professional development yet. We're going to put a lot of our PD into our K-2, which goes into the next part. Oops. How are we going to be ready to make these changes? Lots of PD. Our teachers are going to need a lot of professional development. We're already thinking about summer professional development that we're going to do and offer for teachers. We're going to do professional development throughout the district and at the school level. We're still waiting on some professional development opportunities from the state, but they, when we met with the director, Dr. Duggins, thank you. She shared with us that there's going to be some like train the trainer work, so that it'll probably be a lot of work that I'm doing and training the literacy coaches, and then trickling it down into the schools. Another big area, which you saw tonight with Riverview, with the success of that, is our literacy coaches supporting our teachers through coaching cycles. And those are working with teams and collaborative meetings. So we're going to do a lot of work together as coaches, and then how we can take that back into our schools. So we're really excited about that approach. And then we're just going to continue to collaborate with the State Department and wait for professional development opportunities. They've already actually have one thing out about a deep dive into the standards this summer. So we're really excited and anticipating some good PD offerings from them.
So to kind of finish up ELA, so over the next few weeks, Amanda and I will be visiting all the 11 schools. We'll split them up, or we'll be going together on some of them. So just talk to teachers kind of where we are, what we're hearing from the states, try to get their feedback on what we can do to help them. Maybe there's some programs that they've used at other schools that they want to have us take a look at as we're looking at teaching some more of this direct, explicit instruction in some of these areas. So we're going to get feedback from them as well. And over the year, we're going to be planning and delivering this professional development. And with our meeting with the state, we offered if we can host something here for the state, for the upper state, we're glad to do that in our training center. So that we'll let you know about that, but we're happy to do that as well. And then we'll also have this selection of new textbooks as well. But I think, again, just meeting with the teachers and going back, Mr. Bodie, your question about teacher retention earlier with the Riverview folks, we want to be very respectful of their time, and I think sometimes it can just be overwhelming for a lot of teachers when you just finished social studies and now you're in science and now ELA, which is a massive part of what elementary instruction is. So we want to make sure that we're very methodical, that we're very respectful, and that we're trying to meet them where they are to get this process going. We're very fortunate that the state does help provide literacy coaches for every one of our elementary schools, so they're going to be very crucial into this rollout, but we're excited to have them available for this process. And then in 24, we'll be in full implementation. And again, it's just as we go through that process, you learn and you figure out and you collaborate and you come up with new ideas to teach these standards. So we're excited to kind of see. It's going to be a long process, but we're excited to see where we'll be at the end of it. So
at one time they were talking about some training for sure this summer, but I'm hearing you say they were slower rolling that out than you.
Yes. So it sounded like, because we have a lot of teachers that are go-getters, and Amanda as well. Like, what do we?
Y'all told them we want to be on the front end of what we could.
Right. So, and a lot of it too, and thank you, Dr. Epps, reminded me, is that there's a piece of the budget and Superintendent Weaver's budget proposal to go towards early literacy training for all teachers in the state. So if that, depending on where that goes with the legislature, we'll know more of what we're going to have and when that will be. We're go-getters. We wanted it this summer. They said, well, it might do a little bit this summer, and it may be more fall. So it's looking like it's probably going to be more fall, other than some smaller things this summer as of right now, but that could gain a lot of steam over the next couple weeks.
Accessible equally to all districts, or is it certain targeted areas first? And
how I interpreted that meeting is they wanted it for all districts, that was for all districts. Correct.
Hey, Peter, did y'all get to see the data like, supporting such like a swing on this? This does seem to be a very comprehensive, transition. Did you get to see the data that supports the decision on that?
We asked, because there are some states that have implemented a lot of this in other districts, and we asked if that data was available, and they said because it was and correct me if I'm getting this backwards or wrong, but that they're in different stages, they're using different curriculums, they're using there's a lot of different screeners that can be used, so different districts that have been already gone down this road, there's not enough yet to make a determination.
Got it.
But they were in our different state meetings, they were very confident that this is the direction that will help propel students moving forward. Yeah.
And that was, we asked specifically for South Carolina districts because in the, can't remember which document, something from the State Department where it talked about pilot programs that are already in place. That's what Peter was referring to. So there's a few districts in our state that are doing this. We asked for the data and they said that, what he said, it's, they're seeing, they think it's positive. Anecdotally, they're getting positive feedback, but it hasn't been going on long enough to provide any type of real data with it yet.
Has there been any other states that have kind of taken this on and that we could kind of glean from them that would relate to South Carolina?
Yes, there are. I know Arkansas is there, Louisiana. That's where we've already been looking at some of their schedules, how they're going to implement the structures of literacy. They have some good resources. We did try to take a little bit of a deeper dive in Arkansas data, but there's not enough there to really tease out what the growth may be there. So Mr. Roaring did pull some stuff at a quick glance, for us. So I wanted to see what that would look like.
Thank you.
So, yeah.
Sorry. Speaking of data, when we were meeting with Dr. Duggan, she's the director of that department at the State Department, one thing that really stood out to me, what she said is, there's a lot of information out there about science of reading and balanced literacy. She's a big science of reading proponent. And I know her from previous work, and we've worked together. I trust her. She knows what she's talking about. She's an expert. But she said there's a lot of misconceptions. She said, Lucy Calkins' balanced literacy isn't just guessing at words. But some things you read, they make it sound like you're just telling a kid, hey, guess at that. That's not really the case. And she said on the other hand, on the same hand, science of reading isn't just phonics. It's never one extreme or the other, and it's kind of somewhere in the middle. And when she said that, that made a lot of sense to me because there's a lot of information about there. And she said it's certainly not settled science. And that's another term that I like. It's certainly not settled science 100%. We think it is a great idea for K2. It's supported by research, but there's also research out there that says that's maybe not the best way. But we feel based on the research we've looked at, based off of our conversations with the State Department and the work that our team has been doing, especially with K2, with the phonological awareness and phonics, that's the best approach.
Great. Thank you, Mike.
So how do you just... Go ahead, Michelle.
I thought that you guys said, and maybe I didn't quite interpret it correctly, but I thought that you guys said that you've actually been kind of exploring for at least before this semester, and certainly before the new standards have come out, you guys have been exploring different things within our reading and phonics curriculum and whatnot. So this isn't something that all of a sudden the state has changed their standards and, now everybody's going to change. No, we've been looking at this for some time. Okay.
So we got a draft in the fall, maybe August, September, and that's one thing. Even last summer, Amanda and the literacy coaches started on this book. I mean, it's we're kind of seeing some tilts that direction, some shifts.
Well, and it's just good. There's just some good research out there that we want to make sure, education is always evolving and changing, and we want to make sure we're keeping up to date and that we're using best practices with our kids.
Tools in that tool.
And that's the last thing I kind of wanted to end with. We don't want to go from one extreme to the other. We have a lot of good things going on in our district. We don't want to overwhelm these teachers because, like we said, we've got a lot of standards. I mean, ELA isn't the only thing. It's a big thing, but it's not the only thing. We've got a lot coming down on these teachers, and go back to teacher retention. We can't just throw everything at them and make big changes. So that's why we're working really hard now to make slow shifts and use data and use our standards to drive what we're doing with these students. So, thank you.
And I do want to add too, I think when we have that opportunity to visit school staff, so like I said, we have a lot of go-getters. We're going to have a lot of people because we do want to pilot some different things and look at some different schedules. And those are where we're going to be able to see what kind of works until we find out what curriculum options come out from the state. So, so yeah, it's going to be a year of learning and an exciting year for us. So we're looking forward to the challenge. So.
You had other questions. Okay.
Thanks. All right, and I'll introduce Yashika Latimer. She's going to come up and talk about math.
Hi. Good evening. Okay, so I'm going to begin by just sharing some updates with you that we came to you at the beginning of the school year and talked about pacing guides. So just kind of wanted to share brief updates. If you look here, our middle school updates, the pacing guides, I promised you at the beginning of the year that we will have a parent-friendly version available for parents on our Fort Mill School District website. and these are available for parents to go on here and see. They're also available, so if a student has a tutor, they can be directed to the site and kind of see some of the things that they're working on. Teachers have a more detailed guide, and you'll kind of see a template of that a little bit later on, but those are not shared for the public. Those are only available for teachers, and they have a Google site that I built for them where they can share those resources. So we've kind of spent some time this fall and this spring going through, taking a deeper dive into the curriculum, looking at learning progressions, looking at what's working for teachers, what instructional strategies are working for teachers, how they can support each other. They also have a Google Classroom available for them where they can drop in resources and share resources with each other. So they've had some time to collaborate with each other and share components of whatever they want to put in there together. And that Google Classroom is open to them on a permanent basis, so they can go in and drop in as they choose to keep moving, and then they can use our teacher work days as well to continue that work. For high school in the fall, we began the collaborative process, pulling all of the high schools together and placing them into groups by what they were currently teaching and allowing them to have time to go through our district-wide strategic plan goals. So discussing where they are within the PLC process in their schools, how they can enhance things within their schools, discussing instructional strategies that they're using and resources as well. Common assessments, if they were interested in those. All of the schools had school-based common assessments, but if there was an interest in doing a district-wide common assessment and how they would envision that to take place. So kind of just polling them and giving them opportunity to have time to sit down and discuss with each other and collaborate and provide that feedback for us. Once I received that feedback, I took it to our high school principals and gave it to them so that they are aware of what their teachers are currently asking for. They were also allowed to request professional development on resources that they currently have or resources that they're interested in having, so that we can kind of put together a plan for them. And with that, we were able to do one of the professional developments that I'll share with you in the end here. They also provided information for us on how we could leverage community partnerships. And by that, we were asking how we could leverage within our community, parents, and all stakeholders. So some of them provided some specific instances that we're going to be working on the next coming school year to make sure that that can happen for our teachers. In the spring, we brought the teachers back together again grouped together by what they were currently teaching. And here you can see 2 templates of what they were actually working on. I did not give you the actual document because that still has to be approved by the high school principals. So once we have that approval, then I can bring that back and share that work with you. Over on the left, you can kind of see a more detailed guide of what the teacher's detailed document looks like, and it's the same template for middle school. So the goal is to make sure that they're focusing on the standards and what's in the document and not how to operate the document. So try to keep everything consistent across the board to take that off of their plate. And if a teacher has to shift for whatever reason to another content area, they already know how to operate the template and they can just go in there and look for what they need. Again, you can see in there suggested days, suggested resources. All of those are suggestions. So it's just something to help give them parameters and what they need to do and to be able to maximize their instruction within the time frame that they have. On the right-hand side, begin to work to focus on the first PLC question. What do we want all students to know and be able to do? So you can see your template down at the bottom had them to identify entry-level skills for students coming into the course, and then also going through the State Department document and support document and justifying why that was an entry-level skill. So for instance, if it was already in the previous learning progression, they would connect that to that standard. If it wasn't in the previous learning progression, they could still put it in. So for instance, one group put in add, subtract, multiply, and divide, and that's all they put. And it was for a high school group. But that wouldn't necessarily mean that they would have to go back and connect that to elementary. So we were trying to bridge the gap between middle and high school to make sure that we have succinct connections and learning progressions taking place. Also asking them to identify exit skills. So what do you want the kids to be able to accomplish by the time they leave your course, right? And how does that align to a subsequent course coming up for them? Again, continuing that learning progression. So the idea is to make sure that we have a cohesive understanding of how to move kids in and out and to make sure that kids have an entry and access point regardless of what content they're in. So we were able to offer some professional learning opportunities. I'm going to start with the one on the right because that was one that was requested from the teachers from that fall professional development list when they were together collaborating. Both of these are state-sponsored, so they're completely covered by the State Department. We don't have to pay for any of these. We don't pay for the professional development. We don't pay for the resources that go along with it. So Math Nation is a resource. The teachers have videos, they have assessments, they have lesson plans. They can get free workbooks sent to their classroom. They just click on a link and they order the workbooks and have those come in. They have opportunities for kids to do challenges, to test themselves within their actual classroom, and to test themselves compared to other students across the state. Students who actually engage in those challenges are eligible for prizes at the end of every month, and we've already had, I think, about 8 students in our district who've received $25 gift cards from participating in these challenges, and that is sponsored by them so that it's not come out of our pocket, and it's a nice incentive to get kids to do math. So we offer the opportunity for all of our algebra teachers to engage in that because we did have 2 teachers who were experiencing a success using that within their classroom with their EOC scores. So we brought all of our algebra teachers, Algebra 1 foundations and intermediate teachers together and allowed them to go to the professional development. And then in the spring, we also offered additional sessions for high school and beginning some for middle school. So I did have about 3 middle school teachers come in to participate because it is available for middle school as well. So the goal for next year is to just continue that process and allow them to have the opportunities to engage in those resources and understand how to utilize those. Teachers also get incentives for participating in it as well. Students can win up to an iPad and teachers can win an iPad as well, depending on their level of engagement within that process. On the left, we have Teachers Researcher, which was sponsored by Marzano Research Group. And within that, we had 2 high schools participate, and we currently have 1 middle school who's going through it now. Teachers can identify an instructional strategy, take it back to their classroom, they become the researcher. So the instructional strategies are pretty broad. They funnel it down to fit their classrooms. They go in and they enact that strategy, and then they come back together to see the effects of it and to analyze how it worked for them. If they find that it didn't make a difference, there's a whole bank of other strategies that they can pull from to go in and keep using. But they're actually working together in a group, in a cohort, so to say, so that they can have those conversations with each other as well. They don't necessarily have to choose the same strategy. They can partner up with a teacher and choose the same strategy and have those conversations, or they can individualize it for their students. And again, that is sponsored by our State Department. Teacher as researcher, we had to apply to be in that group. So we submitted the application twice, and we're accepted the second time. So we have been accepted for all of our middle and high schools. So hopefully we can get more middle schools to participate next year and our other high school to participate. And even though the 2 have already had some teachers go through it, they didn't put all of their teachers through it. So if they want to continue to add people, they can do that as well. We've had a couple of book studies taking place. So on the left, Number Talks. We know our elementary students are using a lot of Number Talks. And so working with some middle school teachers on what are Number Talks, how to implement that in their classroom, helping them become comfortable with doing that. So for instance, a group of teachers that were actually participating in that book study said, hey, this is great. Not really sure if I'm comfortable with doing this. So Dr. Wakesness and myself went over to the school, and I actually did the Number Talk for them to kind of help them become comfortable with it. So now they're jumping in. They're getting there. Hopefully we can continue to spread that so that we can understand what our students already know from elementary when they're coming up and continue that learning progression seamlessly. On the right, we're doing Building Thinking Classrooms, and this is one of my favorites. So Building Thinking Classrooms, we're taking the focus off of the teacher and direct instruction, more so to the teacher being a facilitator and understanding how kids are thinking about problems. What are the kids bringing to the table? So we're eliminating a deficit perspective and engaging in an asset-based approach. So trying to understand what they all know and understanding that every kid is different and every kid, what they bring to the table should be valued, and you're giving each student in your classroom an entry point into the lesson because there's not a right or wrong answer as far as what's happening there. You're giving them the task and you're letting them go for it. you're listening to their conversations and just engaging with it. So currently there's one school who is almost finished with the book study, one school who will begin it next year, and they're planning to do a year-long book study. And then I think there's a third one who's actually considering doing the book study next year as well. The one school who's already engaging in it, we kind of sit down and go through the process together. I go in and listen to their conversations as they're talking, and we just kind of talk about being vulnerable in your classroom and how you have to create a safe space for your students and be willing to not always be the most knowledgeable person in the classroom, which is difficult for math people. Because, you know, math people like to think that there's only one way to do everything. And so it opens up the realm of creativity in mathematics and allowing kids to engage even if they feel like they haven't been successful in math. So I tried to explain to them that we're thinking through, I'm not successful in math yet. It's a process that we're building for that point. Okay, and so we are getting new standards. Yes, we are getting new standards. Going to take a minute. You can see we are here, our nice big arrow there. We're in between the writing phase and public review. We're in a year holding pattern almost where we are with that. And so as soon as we get updates with it, you can see there's 5 phases to this process. Wanted to share that with you so you can see what's all happening. There will be a public review. And so once I have that information on public review, I'll share that with teachers. And we can share that with you guys as well so that everyone can go out and review the standards. During that time, you're allowed to give feedback, and then they take it and keep continuing through the next process. Right now, our scheduled timeline says sometime in 2023. So whenever we get that, I will come back and share more information with you. Yes. It's kind of like when you get on the airplane and you sit there and you buckle in, but the pilot's not there yet and you have to sit and wait. That's where we are. So once we get to, more information, I can bring that back and share with you. In the meantime, we're going to continue some vertical teaming, some vertical alignment with teachers. We've already began the process with elementary and middle school. So we have a group of 5th grade GT teachers who are currently working with a group of 6th grade GT teachers. Just starting with a small group just to begin that collaboration, and then we'll continue to expand upon that. They've created an actual lesson that the teachers are going to pilot at the end of this school year. We'll come out together and share information on it and figure out what's working. We kind of developed the lesson based off of standards that 6th grade teachers identified that kids need to be a little stronger in coming in, and some standards that 5th grade teachers identified as, possibly not going in as much depth with as they wanted to. So we're piloting, and they were really great because they put together some resources outside of the box of what they're normally using. So they're trying some things, and we're going to see what works with that. We're also going to have a vertical alignment, a vertical teaming with 8th and 9th grade, particularly Algebra 1, so that we can get on one page with that. And that's kind of why we did this whole process before with pacing, to make sure that everyone has their own idea of what they're going to do across the high schools and across the middle schools. Then we can come out together and talk about, what does that look like? Obviously, there's a difference in the time limit that they have to teach it. So high school's a semester, middle school's still a year-long course for that. But we'll begin those conversations and also begin the conversations about our grade level Math 8 students and how we can help make them prepared for going into Algebra 1 in high school as well. Okay, and so now Mr. Scroggs.
All right, good evening. I realize after 8 o'clock y'all have focus fatigue, so I'm going to be brief. You've had the main course. I'm just like the dessert, and Peter's going to say something that's like the after-dinner coffee in a minute. So what we really want to do is bring it all together in terms of collaboration. We started with Riverview talking about how important it is for teacher teams to collaborate, and that's really where we finish this journey. That as we go through new standards, we want to make sure that our collaboration is accelerating all learning for all students. That's what the goal is to make many hands make light work. So our focus on collaboration at the middle and secondary level has been job-alike sessions. That's a new term. We want to make sure that we wrap ourselves around it because beginning the school year, middle school was the first ones to dip their toes in the pool with job-alike sessions at our Engage to Learn Back to School conference. That was every 6th grade ELA teacher in one room, every 7th grade math teacher in one room. All content areas at the middle level got to spend some time and work through some of these things that the other coordinators have mentioned. It was successful. So we tried that again, on October the 17th for middle and high school, dedicating 2 hours at the high school, 3 hours at the middle school on a teacher workday. We did that for the core content areas, and the other areas were picked up by the OEC, where they support us with professional development. And then we strung that into the second semester with February 17th. So 3 opportunities at the middle school, 2 at the high school for several hours of job-alike sessions. What those allowed us to do were to have teachers talk about what are the essential standards. Doesn't matter which high school or middle school you go to in our district, what can we guarantee every kid is going to learn? Pacing guides, as they've mentioned, anchor text. If you're going to be a graduate from the Fort Mill School District, what can we say every 9th grader has read? Common assessment, sharing resources and strategies. So we did that through our job-alike sessions. We have a plan to carry that over and visit that, and that'd be an ongoing process in the fall and the spring for our teachers next year. Lastly, for the secondary, we wanted to look at who's doing collaboration exceptionally well. And for us, that was Adlai Stevenson High School. It was really the birthplace of collaborative teams. And we took the high school principals, assistant principals for instruction, and our coordinators again out to look at a high school of like 8,000 students who are living it every day. We did sessions on assessing student learning, collaboration, instruction, professional learning, teams, rigorous curriculum. They are able to have small communities within a community. They may have 45 math teachers at that school, so they have to have subgroups of math teachers, but they're doing it exceptionally well because they are sharing the work. So we spent some time observing that schedule. We'll do that with middle schools next year, and out of that, we won't have time to talk about it today, but we've even looked at what could we possibly do to revamp the high school schedule to allow for more collaboration amongst our teachers. So collaboration is key for all learners. We saw it at the beginning, and we kind of bring it back at the end.
And before Mike comes back up to close us out, at the elementary level, we have anywhere from 4 to 8 or 9 teachers per grade level, so they have a lot of opportunities for collaboration in PLCs. But about 3 or 4 years ago, with our related arts folks, where typically you have one music teacher, one art teacher, we just call it our third Wednesdays. So on our third Wednesdays, those related arts teams, they get together. A lot of them meet virtually each month. Our counselors meet each month as well. And what they do is they look at standards. They talk, a lot of times they'll take turns bringing something to the meeting to share about what they're doing and teaching at their school or a program that they've run. This year we added in-person meetings in January and March to be dedicated time. So the principals made sure in their schedules with whatever they had going on those days that they, from 9:30 to at least 11:30, those teachers can leave their buildings, they get together and they look at and they plan with one another. And meeting with those groups on the March workday, they want to continue that, and the principals want to continue to give those teachers that opportunity. So we'll continue that going forward. Another thing too, our special services teachers started this as well about 2, 3, 4 years ago, and where they meet that third Wednesday of the month. So a lot of times their inclusion resource teachers will get together, their special settings teachers will get together, and that is facilitated by Dr. Maziar's office with her directors. So they kind of lead those. And that also includes all the related services, such as their OTs, their speech teachers, their PTs, their BIs, mental health, and their nurses as well. So there's a lot of collaboration going on for all of these different, or sometimes it's we call them standalone or singletons where they're by themselves. Turn back to Mike.
All right, so before we get to any questions, I do want to make one correction. when I said the quote about Abby Duggan saying that it's not a settled science, she's not the person that said that. I heard that in another webinar training. I don't want to misattribute a quote to anybody, so I wanted to clear that up. I heard that in one of the other trainings that we're doing, but not from Abby. All right, so to close, I don't have a slide for this. I wish I would have put it on a slide, but I wanted to review the standards and when they're being implemented. So think about this from an elementary teacher's point of view that teaches all 4 core areas, or even a middle school teacher that often teaches 2 of the core areas. So in 21-22, the 2021-2022 school year, teachers had to fully implement the new social studies standards. Some grades, they weren't a huge amount of changes. Some grades, they were completely new courses. This school year, 22-23, is a bridge year for the new science standards. So 2 new sets of standards. In 23-24, next school year, they'll be fully implementing those new science standards. In 24-25, teachers will be fully implementing new ELA standards, which are big changes. That's 3. And then shortly after this, they'll be implementing their new math standards. So as we talk about all this work and all these great things going on, I want to make sure we remember from the teacher point of view, that is huge. That is 4 new sets of standards in a 4-year time period for our elementary teachers. That's a lot of work for them to do, and we know they'll do a great job at it, and hopefully as a curriculum department we'll be able to support them and continue to support them through that journey. Questions?
Yes. So Stevenson High School, so I'm from that county, so I compete against them in high school. That's one of the top high schools in the country.
Yes.
How did Stevenson come apart? How did they get on your list?
So they are kind of known as the birthplace of the professional learning communities, and they host visitors from across the world. They have once a month, they have a 2-day session where you could go and learn. When we were there was probably about 60 other teachers from various states and districts learning about them. So they're kind of the founders of that work. And it was, high school is usually harder to implement PLCs, not impossible, but a little bit harder. And they're doing it there in a very large high school, much larger than our schools, larger than if all 3 of our schools were one school. And they figured out a way to do it. So we wanted to go and learn from them.
Thank you.
One question, one comment. My question is, I'm just curious, for courses like Spanish or art, is the same process true about standards and new standards being introduced, or are those more independent?
Typically the same process. They're not updated as frequently. And then there's certain courses that do not have standards. Like, I don't want to say this without knowing for sure, but maybe Greg could fact check me. I don't think like marine science has standards. So there are a few courses that do not have standards.
Programs
Right.
and things like that, I'm assuming, are kind of independent.
Right.
Okay.
Yeah.
And then my only comment would be to say, I know it's gonna cost money and it's gonna be a challenge to implement, but I think the opportunity to give the planning time to our elementary teachers, especially in light of of this additional set of activities, is really important.
Certainly.
So
Agreed.
I look forward to figuring out exactly how that's going to play out next year.
Yes.
Hey, Mike, do we kind of, are you forecasting, I don't know, like a dip, maybe like almost like a pruning season where we're kind of like, it feels like we're kind of cutting off some things that we really knew while we're growing into new things? Are we projecting our grades to kind of come down, our numbers to just take a little dip?
So I think that you run the risk of that when you implement anything new. There's usually an implementation dip. I don't know if I would say we will see that, but we certainly could. Usually when new things are implemented, there's a little bit of a dip and then you come back stronger. So I don't have a forecast for that, but that is a possibility, yes.
Anything else?
A short-lived dip. With the quality of teachers we have, they will bring it back up even higher than we were before. That's right.
Anything else?
Any other questions?
Thank you. I know it was a lot. I know we try to do this at least once or twice a year, but it's important. It's really the reason we exist, right?
Yes.
Is to teach our students.
Thank you.
Thank you. And that brings us to our final item, which is the superintendent's report. You've got a calendar and some attendance stuff.
Are you ready for the last item?
Yep, we are.
You getting tired, huh? Okay, calendar of events. Of course, the spring break week, the District Hall of Fame ceremony tonight at 5, and then the meeting here at 6, still going on. School Boards Association Day at the Capitol next Wednesday, is that right? The 19th?
Your birthday.
Yeah, about that.
Samurai Jack's birthday. How's that?
There you go. That's better. The 25th is our next board meeting here at the district office at 6. On the 26th, well, a couple of dates that aren't in there. That tomorrow night we're naming our 5 finalists for the Teacher of the Year, next year's Teacher of the Year. You know how we do that. It's confusing. On the 26th of April, there's the Teacher of the Year Gala. It's a little different this year. They're going to have a Darlene Romanick and I and Mandy DeMayo are going to the garden at the governor's mansion. So I don't know what it's going to look like, but we're going to be outside under a tent, I hope, with all the Teachers of the Year, and I guess the governor's involved this year, along with Superintendent Weaver, I'm assuming.
She talked about it during her state Board of Ed meeting today.
But everybody's not invited. That's the reason I'm telling you all that. It's only, you can go to my place. No. I wanna go.
And she said she's real excited and they're going to do some great things, but she didn't elaborate a lot. Just that it's coming and they're real excited about it.
Okay, well maybe she knows more
because it's
about it than
different than previous years.
Usually they have the gala and
Right.
At night. So anyway, that's on the 26th. The 28th is a Friday, the next 2-hour early release time for students and teacher planning. Then we get into May, the board meeting on the 9th, the district retirement reception. I don't know if I've told you about that yet. We scheduled it for the Glennon Center at on the 18th at 5:30. Then I don't know that I've mentioned the Gold Hill Elementary School time capsule. When we opened that school in 1994, I was the first principal, but we installed a time capsule, and we're going to open it. It's supposed to be 25 years later, but COVID made it 27 years, I guess. So we're going to open it that morning. That might be a neat event. They're going to go, all the kids are going to go to the middle school stadium, Gold Hill Middle School Stadium, and we're going to have the current PTO and some of the old PTO members from back in the day. Diane Dasher and several of them want to come. 26th, which is a Friday, is a teacher work day. The 27th is graduation. And for new board members, there's 3 in a row there. We've done that one other time, I think, or twice.
Last year was the first time we did all 3.
Okay, last time we did all 3. We 10, 2, and 6, and you're invited to all 3. You don't have to come to all 3. You can come to 1, you can come to 2, you can come to 3, you can come to none. But you're part of the procession going in, so just you and Joe. It's just fun.
I have students graduating. I cannot wait.
Absolutely.
Okay. We'll even let you, yeah, you do, students you taught. Then the 29th, Memorial Day holiday, and then the board will meet and approve the budget, we hope, on June the 6th. And then I think we've hit the end of the school year. Questions? Or did I leave out some dates?
We've got a Teacher of the Year thing tomorrow.
He mentioned that.
Did he?
It's not written down, no,
I
but
kept
he mentioned
looking
it.
back.
I said 2 dates on the list, and
There's
Okay.
a new Teacher of the Year. I'm talking about the.
I was confusing, wasn't it?
Okay.
There's 2 of them that are going on there.
Never mind.
Two comments. One, just to point out, graduation is on the 27th. I know some early version of a calendar draft from many moons ago said the 26th. It is on the 27th. That's what was contracted with Winthrop Coliseum, so it is on the 27th. I've had a couple people talking about that.
Which is a Saturday.
Which is Saturday. That's right. Friday was not available. And then the other thing I would just point out, there's, from what I count, there's 4 board meetings left. I know tonight was long and a lot of material. We've got several big things. We've got strategic planning update. We've got the calendar update. We've got the budget to go through. So we've got a lot to do in the next 4 meetings of this school year. So we'll have some other 8:30 evenings, I suspect.
Fun never ends.
10 o'clock evenings.
Since y'all get paid so much for doing this.
That's right.
Appreciate your willingness. Yeah, we do have some important, and we've jotted them out on some future calendars, but we'll see how it plays out on some future agendas. Okay, any questions about the calendar? The, what does that leave, the enrollment?
Yep. Enrollment. And
Okay, so, and yeah, the teacher attendance. We ended March March 2, we were 18,186. We grew by 7 students. Again, that's kind of fool's goal, I think. We grow primarily during the summer. We have these, you look at it during the year and it looks like we're not growing much at all, but then we'll get a big hit there as soon as June starts hitting, and it'll all kind of look like it's going to look for next year. But any questions about that?
I have one question on the 135 day. Our enrollment number said 18,180, but back in February when we adjusted for our early graduates, we were at 18,2.
Yeah, I don't think they're in this number. Is that your question?
Yes, only because that 135 day, that impacts our funding, and we did pay to educate them.
Yeah, I'll have to check it. Yeah. I'll
Don't we
check
get
on
credit at least for?
That's a good question.
Hey,
Yeah,
don't shake your head no, I want credit.
It's 54 students, 54
but yeah,
mid-years.
They're not part of our average daily membership today.
Oh, they count on the 45 day, not on the one.
Right.
Okay. I know. I'm trying. Do the same thing, right.
Okay, then the teacher attendance, Fort Mill High led the high schools with 95.159. Pleasant Hill Middle led the middles with 95.274, and the leader of the elementaries and also the leader of the district, Springfield Elementary, 96.27. So,
But all up in the high 90s, which is
awesome. Admirable.
Impressive.
That's right. That's right.
Okay.
Questions?
Anything else? We do not have an executive session, so this is your last opportunity for anything else. Otherwise, happy birthday to Joe.
Happy birthday to Joe.
And,
I'll come back
Oh,
for
no,
our next meeting before that, but I'll come back with some state training committee information and conference dates so that we have an early knowledge. Yeah.
All right, well, I will entertain a motion to adjourn.
Motion to adjourn.
All right, thank you all. We are.